Lawrence is like spiraling out of control, man. Like I do think it's a lot of coaching. I think that there's still some talent there, but who knows if that's true. He's doing this, the quarterback does the spin move. Fields is very good at it, actually. Like you're in the pocket and you're getting the rush, and you spin move back out to leave the rusher
right
underneath you, and get out of the pocket.
Tyler likes this move.
Yeah, it's a big thing. Like all the quarterbacks are kind of learning this thing. Lawrence has like not learned how to do it, but fallen in love with it.
He's so bad at it, dude.
He's so bad at it, and he now does it. He's seeing ghosts, dude. He's totally seeing.
He
ghosts.
does it. He did it, and then he like ran back. He like got
the wrong
dizzy.
way. Yeah.
Yes, he got dizzy.
He did dizzy bat.
Like, he needs to do dizzy bat to practice. His inner ear is all out of whack.
His spin move is, if you're listening to this or watching this, watch the next Jags game and watch how many times Trevor Lawrence tries to spin out. And like, sometimes there's no pressure and he spins out. Yeah. And he'll stumble.
I'm telling you, man.
He looks like a drunk college kid. Yeah. Playing dizzy bat, doing the spin move.
Yeah.
All right, Pat. It's been a brief hiatus. We're 4 weeks in to the 2024 NFL season, and it's time to cope and vent and tilt and maybe celebrate, hopefully a sprinkling of celebration over the course of this episode. But we wanted to get together and kind of about on a quarterly basis, just kind of check in on our best ball teams, on the things that we spent 4 months dissecting down to the nth degree over the course of the summer, and see how we're feeling about some of that stuff. And I'm excited to get back into it. We were talking quickly before the show that I feel like I'm in the weirdest place, like mentally, advance rate wise, teams wise, than I've ever been in the 5 years of this whole best ball thing. It's like things are going well, but I'm waiting for the shoe to drop type situation. So I think some fun conversations around structure and all sorts of different things that we can have today. But how are you feeling for 4 weeks into this chaos?
Not great, to be honest. It's been kind of a bummer of a season for a lot of the stuff that I liked, including this Rashee Rice ACL tear. I would say Rice was probably the biggest hit that I had this season.
Maybe the best pick in fantasy, like, period. Like, even when he wrote, maybe the very end it wasn't as good in like non-time box tournaments, but
even
like,
then it ended up being a win.
Even then he was a total win.
Yeah, so that's a real bummer because he was carrying the teams that were doing well for me. A lot of them were Rice teams, so it's like, that's a bit of a bummer. The elite tight end stuff has looked really weak. That was a big part of my portfolio. A lot of the running backs that I like. I mean, Jalen Warren's been hurt. He hasn't been healthy. I think he was like kind of healthy a little in week 2 and then hurt his knee in week 3. So, and then missed week 4. So that's been awful. Drake May isn't on the field yet, so it's just not an ideal start for me. But I was thinking, like, I think a couple years ago, I don't know that I was really even checking my advance rates until like week 7 or 8. I do think that probably like Pete and Leone have written a lot about like tilting less. And I do think that like checking your advance rates, when we spend the whole summer talking about how like advance rate, while important, is like the least important of kind of all the things you're trying to do. And then 4 weeks in, you're like, my advance rate. It's like, I think zooming out is probably a good thing to do right now, especially if you drafted a lot of Mark Andrews.
Oh boy, you got to zoom way the fuck out.
You want to zoom really far out. Zoom all the way to 2021, maybe. Yeah,
right. Yeah. To the different part of the metaverse is where you need to zoom out to for your Mark Andrews teams.
Keep zooming.
I agree with everything you said, except last year I had the worst advance rate ever. I advanced 12% of teams across all of Underdog. It was like 12 point something. When I'm feeling frisky, I like to round it up to 13. It's like the 5'4" guy that says he's 5'6".
Mm-hmm.
It's like, buddy, you're still really short. Like, nobody gives a shit if it's 13% or 12%. But I had a 12% advance rate in BBM, and I distinctly remember, like, feeling really bad about that because naturally everybody wants to advance more teams, but also feeling like, and I think you and I had this conversation late last year where I was like, I didn't advance a lot of teams, and that nobody wants that. Everybody wants to advance as many teams as possible. But like, I feel like we structure our teams in such a way that I am just a little bit more likely to catch lightning in a bottle on one team. And that's all we're looking for is one team, man. Like your whole season, Pat's life got defined by one team, right? A life-changing team that you drafted. A ton of people are going to win a bunch of money in best ball this year, and they could have a 6% advance rate or a 46% advance rate, and they get the same amount of money. No matter at the
You
end
and
of the
Pete,
year.
when you and Pete finished 10th, was that your only team that made it?
Yes, both of
And
our
last year, both your only. And last year, you guys what did you finish last year?
12th.
12th. Is that your only
And
team?
my
that made
only
it?
team. My only team on Underdog. I had two DK finals teams that did horribly.
I finished 35th or 36th last year. It was the only team of mine that made it. I finished first, and it was the only team that made it. So I do think there's some now. It's chaotic in week 15 and 16. A lot of your best teams get knocked out, and so bringing more teams to the party,
yes,
makes a big difference. So you do. It's not. We're not. Neither one of us is saying like, oh, advance rate doesn't matter. It does, but I do think that if you're building teams that are designed to catch lightning in a bottle for a single week, which we both do, and are tilted toward the end of the season more than the beginning of the season, with that in mind, and you can do other things like stacking and correlating and all of that, of course, but that it just if you do end up having a poor advance rate while trying not to, but you do, then yeah, I mean, I think you're hoping you make a final, right? You're hoping you make a few finals in different tournaments, but in like BBM, you're hoping you make one team to the final. And how many teams are you going to have in the semis, right? Because I think I had 4 teams in the semis, but you could have 4 teams in the semis by getting 4 teams to week 15, or you could have 4 teams in the semis by getting like 80 because it's really hard. It's like you're gonna need the right pieces in week 15, then you're gonna need the right pieces in week 16, and then in 17 too. So I think to some extent the advance rate stuff you don't want to sweat it too hard, especially this early. Like, I mean, we have a lot more to go even in round 1 of this tournament. We still have 10 more weeks to go in round 1 of the tournament.
We're a little over, right? We're not a third, over a quarter of the way through the first part of this journey.
Yeah,
the first part,
which is the least important part of a 4-leg tournament.
Exactly. And so it's also the least important part, but the part that is correlated most with some of the things that we worry about at this time of year. So it's that weird like counterbalance type situation where like Rushy Rice going down, you're overweight him, gonna kill your advance rate, right? But it actually teams that you now get through without Rushy, or teams that you have without Rushy Rice that maybe were hovering in 6th, just got a little more life than the other teams did, right? You're holding on to first with a Mark Andrews team. Shouts to you, like you built an awesome team because you drafted a 5th round tight end doing absolutely jack shit. But your other teams that were without Mark Andrews are looking a lot stronger. And so there's always this push-pull.
Yeah, but you probably don't want that Mark Andrews. Dude has run 16 routes over the last 2 weeks combined. What's going on?
So here's my stance on all. Mark Andrews is the best test of this thesis is if you are alive. This is what I tell everybody. They're like, it's over for that guy. I'm like, yes, Mark Andrews is not going to be a 5th round pick, right? He's in Resurrection. He's probably going to go in 150s or something.
Honestly,
like that.
He didn't. I was kind of surprised. We just did one this morning on ADP chasing, and he went, I feel like around 100 or something. It was a lot earlier than I thought he would go.
That's ridiculous. But
so you know what, Eric? When you go in there, it's like every pick when you shine the light on all these picks, they look horrific. But like when you have to then pick somebody. Now, I probably think it was too high, but like it was. But all of these picks are awful. Like there's
Right.
so many bad picks. Like it's
You're
not
just
like
rummaging through the bottom of the fucking
yeah.
garbage can. Like they're
Yeah. So it's
all
like
once you get
how could you
beyond the
take
first 3
Andrews when
rounds.
you could have
Yeah.
had well actually, geez. I don't know.
Yeah. And
Maybe
Mark Andrews
just
or
take him.
Cole Kmet. Like, you know, like I don't know.
Yeah.
At least I can tell myself a story about Cole Kmet has this league winner. Or Cole Kmet definitely doesn't, although he's shown more than Mark Andrews so far. But like, we can tell ourselves this story that, like, look, he's off an injury. It's a slow start to the year. We are getting a little this week in particular of the Ravens thing you and I talked a lot about over the summer. Where like we need the pushback. We need the defense to not be so good. We need Derrick Henry to not take carries
don't
80
take
yards.
the first touch to the house, 87-yard touchdown. That's not ideal.
It's not great.
But it is funny because like Cole Kmet, he ran 11 routes week 1, and it's over. He's behind Gerald Everett, worst pick ever. You know, then week 2 he ran more routes, but still not great.
What is
Caleb doesn't look good. Yeah, and then he caught 10 receptions for 97 yards and a touchdown in week 3. And like, oh yeah, hell yeah, Cole Kmet. And then last week, I mean, he went 3 for 34, no touchdown. Back to 20 routes run. I don't know how many dropbacks they had, but that might be like not a ton of the routes. So anyway, it's like I don't know, but like things change, especially tight end. Things are going to be pretty chaotic. The chaos, I think we do, man. We slam like head for. It's kind of like doing the whole summer. You know, summer themed, right? Little pool party. We're doing. We're diving from like 200 feet. Maybe that's too many feet. So whatever is not lethal.
200?
It might be too much.
It's an apt analogy because we're not surviving. Okay, so maybe it is
some
a
of
200
us might not be surviving. Yeah. It's whatever the max before lethal is basically what we're doing, and you're trying to like do a dive, gracefully, maybe feet first, right, to brace for the impact, but it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt, and if you come down on your butt, it's really gonna hurt. But if you flip over and you belly flop, maybe we're not surviving. But it is the harsh reality of like because all summer you're like, oh, this guy's gonna break out, and this dude's an awesome pick, and then it's like almost everyone sucks. Yes. it's pretty hard. It's a pretty big wake up call.
It really is. I think that's probably what the best of what this time is for. I think that's what I've been trying, like the tilt less thing. Yeah. I've been trying to take it as more of like, just remember this next year. Don't sweat all this shit. Look, it's a Mark Andrews, whatever. Just pretend it's not happening. Move on.
Some of these guys are dead. They are just dead.
It is what it is. But like, we forget that like that happens every year, and every year at this time we have the same conversation about different players and different takes that we had, and then we get Men in Black fucking flashy thinged on December 31st, and we come back the next year and we do the same shit all over again every time, right?
Well, I almost think that we have to Men in Black flashy ourselves because if we're thinking through like upside cases and who are going to be the guys who, like, I mean, Rashee Rice would be an example of this, unfortunately. Let me grieve. We're like, we're projecting the second year breakouts. He wasn't the best prospect, but given what he showed, you can kind of tell yourself the story of like exactly what happened. Like he's going to take over more of the Kelsey role. He's going to level his game up. They're going to involve him more in the offense. He's going to be like, a consistent, very, very solid delivering very solidly week in, week out, and clearly their best wide receiver, right? But like most of the time, even if that works out, he tears his ACL in week 4. Mm-hmm. That's the way NFL football works. So like you almost have to like forget all of the like trauma from the previous season so that you can then like imagine the upside scenarios that will occur, that you will get a Kyron and a Puka, not necessarily at those prices, but the guys who come from the very beginning of the season and deliver all season. Unfortunately, that's probably Saquon Barkley for me, unfortunately, this year. But there's these guys, you see that. But look, I mean, I wasn't in on the Barkley upside case at all. But you did have to tell yourself a story. I think the story was implausible. He's going to just be like the best efficiency of his career. The whole offense is going to run through him for some reason. maybe injuries. You know, they're gonna have to like just run it all through him. He's gonna have like really long runs all the time. He's not really gonna catch that many passes, but it won't matter. Like what? Okay, I guess that could happen. It's happening.
They're gonna do away with the tush
It's happening
push.
every week.
Yeah,
they could do
it. He's gonna score more points despite playing with Paris Campbell and Jahan Dotson and Johnny Wilson. You know, yeah, it's like Lane Johnson missed the game, right? Oh, who cares? Saquon's gonna score another touchdown. Like, I think
they'll have Kenny Gainwell in at the goal line, but he's still
right. Gainwell got a goal line carry.
It's not even a concern.
He doesn't score naturally. I think so. I think the things that you're talking about in terms of our flashy thing, that's what they called it, right? It was just the flashy
I don't know.
Thing, right? I can't remember. Sure that's what Will Smith calls it in the first one, like originally, like the flashy thing. I don't remember if they ever came up with another name. Somebody will correct us, I'm sure.
Yeah.
A Men in Black enthusiast will correct us. But I think there are other things, not like necessarily actionable or not like necessarily I'm trying to, like you said, paint a picture for all these players next year and using this as a data point to do so. But just like, so I'm just using in a conversation from earlier this morning with some folks in the Discord where just like how things are priced in certain situations and like maybe some opportunities that are exploitable that the market just has its biases, and not everything is rooted in like, you know, like I think the Mark Andrews price was good, and it just sometimes it's just how it goes, right? The guy just turns to dust. It is what it is.
Right.
Allen Robinson was going at the 2-3 turn his last year on the Bears, and the year before he had a fucking like 30-something% target share, and really didn't like. And nobody was like, yeah, it's for sure over for A-Rob, and it was for sure over for A-Rob in that season. So it just happens. But like Chuba Hubbard is fresh off of 2 monster games for the Carolina Panthers. Now, was it completely fluky that Bryce Young got benched and Andy Dalton is still competent to keep this offense afloat? Yeah, absolutely. But he was priced in a entirely different way than Jerome Ford was priced. And when you look at the two situations, how different was it really? Like players?
It honestly depends how much Winston has left.
Yeah, like from between the two players, did you say Winston? I thought you said Watson.
No, I said Winston, Eric.
Yeah, that is
because that's what it's going to come down to.
When Jameis comes in, we're really going to get this thesis. This is the fucking Spider-Man meme, dude. Like on multiple levels. Bryce Young, Deshaun Watson, Spider-Man meme. Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton, Spider-Man meme. Chuba Hubbard, Jerome Ford, fucking Spider-Man meme. Like everything, Nick Chubb,
Jonathan Brooks, Nick Chubb, Spider-Man meme.
It's like they're both pretty good, and we expect them to take on the right. Like everything was the same. Jerome Ford went, depending on the site you're drafting on, somewhere around pick 100. If I recall, the FFPC people fucking love.
It wasn't that
Jerome.
early. Not an underdog. It wasn't that early.
On DraftKings, he was definitely somewhere around pick 100. I guess I could just really quick. On underdog, Jerome.
He was
Ford,
like pick 120ish.
Closed at 109.6.
Damn.
So 110. Right. Chuba Hubbard closed at pick 135. So a 2-round gap of closing ADP. I think I helped drive up the Chuba price.
Chuba used to be cheaper than that. Yeah.
So it was cheaper. And I'm not even trying to say like Chuba was clearly the answer. I'm just trying to say this very easily could have been Jerome Ford is smashing for the first month and Chuba is dust because Bryce Young is still in there, and then Brooks comes back and it's over. But we get certain things where I'm just like, just remember that, right? Where the market said, no, this exact same situation, I want this guy at pick 100 and this guy at pick 140, and they're the same thing. And I know people are going to come in and say, well, the Panthers this and the Browns this. And like, I get all of that, but like, that's just kind of arguing the semantics. When we just break down both cases, they're so similar. And we,
you know, what's a funny one to me is the Ricky Pearsall one. I talked a little bit about this on ADP Jason, but like because some of the cases that I made, you know, like the Ricky Pearsall case, I was like, first round pick plus chaos. That's my case, because everyone's like, how can you possibly deliver? I was like, I don't know. What do you want me to tell you exactly how? I don't know. But the point is, like, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of stuff happens in an NFL season, and he was a first round pick, right? And then obviously he hasn't played because the chaos went completely the wrong way. Chaos happened to him. It's too much chaos.
His watch is too nice. His watch is too nice.
The chaos, worked against us. But Juwan Jennings, who I actually do have a little taste of on DraftKings, not too much, but yeah, just a couple shares. But because he was 20th round and everything. Yep. But I mean, he shows now. Maybe Pearsall's not good. Maybe he never would have been able to do what Jennings. I mean, almost Jennings couldn't do what Jennings did again.
He scored 50. He scored 50 on DraftKings.
Yeah,
in a week.
Right. So I'm not saying like, oh, that would have been Pearsall, but he would have been one of the weapons in addition to Jennings, and maybe some of that production, goes his way. Whatever. But more importantly, like he could clearly a non-Ayuk Debo CMC weapon, Kittle, right? It's so crowded. How could anyone but those guys score? Like one of them just put up 50. So
Jordan Mason is dominating every single week, and Juwan Jennings has the highest score for any San Francisco 49er individual player in forever. So clearly, like you said, the chaos element is that phrase is what is probably the thing. Like when I said, I'm trying to remember that, because I tried to speak about it a lot over the course of the summer, mostly as if I say it out loud, I'll remember it myself. I'm not trying to preach. And I'm doing that all throughout the course of these first 4 weeks, because over the summer, this, I'm as guilty of it as anybody else. But we really try to break down all these situations, and it's really impossible to see any of the chaos coming. Ricky Pearsall got fucking shot, dude. Shot with a gun over a watch. That's absurd. Rashee Rice is mid breakout, going to be a first round pick next season, pending suspension. And Patrick Mahomes throws an interception. Rashee Rice does the right thing as a football player, tries to go make a tackle, and his own quarterback blows out his knee. You cannot see this stuff coming. It's not possible. Patrick Mahomes never throws interceptions hardly until this year anyway. And then the fluky nature in which it happens. We can't see most of this stuff coming. But over the summer, when we're making our picks and we're drafting all of these teams, we often act as though either chaos is not going to happen, or we might be able to predict said chaos. Look at the Vikings on the other side of this coin. They're not having chaos happen really in terms of injuries and stuff like that. They're having chaos in that everyone said they're going to be so bad with Sam Darnold at quarterback that we can't draft Sam Darnold. Should you take Justin Jefferson in the first round, right? Addison got priced down. Hawk is priced down. Aaron Jones is priced down. And look, 4-0, beat the 49ers, the Texans, and the Packers. 3 playoff teams, right? The chaos is such that we just can't ever see it coming. So I think what you said is what I'm trying to remind myself. Good player, or what's the picture? First round pick, good offense, no matter what, the offense is good. Chaos. How does it happen? I have no idea, dude. How is Jordan Mason the fucking RB2 or whatever through the first month of the season? I have no idea. I didn't predict Christian McCaffrey's going to be in Germany getting his calf like that. No one saw this coming. But when you just draft good players, or things where if it shakes out right, it works. That's what I want, right? I don't really care about all the details.
Yeah, I do think too. I probably didn't draft enough Wicks. Wicks became a meme and moved up. And now, of course, Watson's going to miss time.
Smash. Now he's
smash. So he looks like a smash. I did draft some Marshawn Lloyd, and he is dust. But I drafted Reed. I did draft a decent amount of Jaden Reed, not a ton, but he was definitely a target for me. But I guess I bring up the Packers because it does feel like, and it felt like that this way last year too, but I would really there's certain offenses that I would really like to be invested in right now. And certain offenses that I really don't care about. And it feels like more and more now, maybe, and almost probably by week 11, it'll feel a little bit silly to wish I had more of the Sam Darnold offense, and be lamenting that I have way too much of the Lamar Jackson offense, because obviously that could swing pretty hard toward Lamar. But there's definitely I think I feel strongly I'd rather have Kevin O'Connell than Todd Monken running coordinating my offense. And
I'm sorry, what's up with all the Charlie Kohler and Pat Ricard again, and like what has happened? Like I'm so confused on what the offense does. I mean, Derrick Henry's running fine, but I know that they played well last night. We're recording this on Monday after Sunday night football. I know that they like won that game and stuff, but like the Ravens they lost to the Raiders, dude. Anybody watch the Raiders this year?
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't look great to me for the Ravens. So I'm just very confused on what the
I mean, the last 2 weeks, you know, they let the Cowboys back in that game.
Stink, though. The Cowboys are not.
I know they stink, but you know, the Raiders stink too.
Yeah.
So it was nice that they turned it around, beat a bad team, and then they beat a good team. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think and I would say they probably the last 2 weeks built the offense more around Henry.
Yeah.
And just like kind of establishing.
It does make sense,
like a power football element.
If you look at the Bills defense and you look at the Cowboys, like they're kind of Swiss cheese, like they're flash. You know, it's a lot of flash and not a lot of substance in terms of physicality. So I think that's probably pretty fair. And we get into some more Chiefs-esque games, and it might be likely and not Andrews, but I think we see more of the Zay and stuff in those games.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's right. But it's like Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. I mean, the fact that Sean McVay's team is like putting up any points at all right now, pretty incredible.
It's unbelievable. He's ridiculous. Him and O'Connell are just absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it's crazy. So I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I kind of regret being like, Shane Waldron will be fine. You got Caleb Williams.
Oh, fuck,
like what? Today I was like, oh wait, Brian Schottenheimer is the Cowboys OC now. Probably should have factored that in more.
Yep. Brian Schottenheimer drawing up plays for Brandon Cooks and Jalen Tolbert and Ezekiel Elliott and Hunter Lepke.
Maybe that
we were like,
great.
We were like, it's fine, dude. It's totally fine.
Mike McDaniel, I'll throw in there as well. I mean, like, but he obviously with the Tua concussion, it's like that's kind of over. But they're just
top heavy. McDaniel's
they're really top heavy. Yeah, they're really fragile.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't know. Maybe you think about that, like how fragile is the team?
Yeah, what do you think about that? So, like, I think the teams in general, and maybe the Rams aren't. To your point, maybe McVay is the most fucking anti-fragile asset in the whole league, I guess, aside from Kevin O'Connell. What do you think about? We've talked about that.
Probably is because they have so many dudes.
Yeah. But like there are elements to that probably are really important. I think the Packers have the perfect combination of an anti-fragile roster and an anti-fragile coach that he can bring Malik Willis in, and they're dropping 30 points on people's head is pretty insane to me. But then the depth of wide receiver, right? The depth at running back, the good offensive line, et cetera, et cetera. But like in terms of thinking towards the future or looking backwards about our mistakes, like when we're we're breaking down these players' profiles, right? We're breaking down the situation and all that kind of stuff. At what point do we need to bring that in? Like
I think I need to bring that in more. I think
maybe Jaden Reed is overpriced based on what like our general thought. And I'm not saying that's true, but we're just like, this situation trumps whoever's right. Lab McConkey's situation or something like that. I'm just making up names.
Yeah, no, Lab McConkey would be a good counterexample maybe, because I'm happy to have Lab. He looks really good.
He looks good.
Herbert's not looking good. The offense is not one I want to be invested in at all. Greg Roman looks like Greg Roman, but Quentin Johnston's involved in like way more than I thought. But Lab looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like almost like old school, like it's just very preseason. Like he's going to come in, he's going to like take control of the targets. It's not going to be a great offense. That's not going to matter because like he's going to be the dude. Like that case is kind of hitting verbatim. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's not like this is the only way things can play out, but like I think generally, if you just said like, I'm investing in the really sharp OCs and I want their pieces, like the really sharp, like the guys that we know for sure are really sharp, right? Like Ben Johnson.
There's like 7 or 8 maybe tops in the league.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out a number. A third of the league. Fourth at
Yeah,
least.
and it's some of it's hindsight bias because, like, I might have thrown Monken in preseason, although that would have been more projection because we haven't really seen him be, kind of a innovator at the NFL level.
But there's for sure McVay, Shanahan, O'Connell. I agree with McDaniel, although that has its own. We talked about the fragility of that team. What I'm missing, so LaFleur. I think like Andy Reid,
for sure.
Like there's the whatever, call it 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever guys. Where like we know it. Like there are very few things that are factually true.
Honestly, I would put in there. Yeah, it's just tough with.
There's just so few of them, but that's the point. If there's so few of them that we can just say, this is fact. This is not debatable. That's like kind of pretty powerful to me. You know what I mean? If I know it for sure.
Yeah, if the guys that I know for sure, not the guys that I'm excited about, but like the dudes that I know for sure are like difference-making OCs or head coaches, offensive-minded head coaches. Because I mean, like, I wasn't that in on Jameson Williams. That would be an example. You're getting like Ben Johnson's potential, number 2 wide receiver. He's looked really good. There's spots where I just wish I was a little bit more aggressive on that. I mean, the Packers would probably be the best example where it was an ambiguous wide receiver. I drafted all those guys, but I didn't draft like any of them super heavy. Although I drafted too much Musgrave, that's for sure.
We're talking about all the receivers and everything. Kraft might be the best Packers pick on the board. I mean, I think Jaden Reed is just really smashing, but like, man, Kraft looks good. He's pretty much just taken that job and run with it, and looks really impressive doing so.
Right. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, maybe that might be an overreaction because, like, you've got guys who are dominating just by like consolidating targets and more traditionally just like, this dude's like better than we thought he was preseason, and like Malik Neighbors would be an example. Although we think Dayball sharp, it's sort of mitigated by Daniel Jones. It's like only how sharp can you really be if you gotta have Daniel Jones run the plays.
Like Canales is gone from Tampa, and it's just everything continues to be fine there, right? Like I don't think we would go into and say the Tampa Bay situation was an anti-fragile. I don't think one good season of Baker Mayfield.
Does everything Tampa feels? I know they just had this big win, but like Tampa feels like it's kind of fake. Like they're getting the ball. They're going to get the ball out so fast. Like. I think Tampa's going to have some horrible games.
Well, they did the week 3.
Week 3? You're right.
Yeah, was bad. They went into Detroit and won in week 2, but they had like 200 yards. It was like Goff kind of gifted them a lot of that game. But I just think generally speaking, like Mike, like no one's like you don't scroll to your team and look at Mike Evans and say, oh shit, okay, this is the Mike Evans team. It's next. Right. You don't say Chris Godwin. Like if you look Chris Godwin's on there,
Chris Godwin, you're loving it.
You feel awesome, right? Bucky is really emerging. You're feeling pretty good about Bucky teams. That's about it. I guess Baker's been good. Baker's on. I was looking earlier today. All 3 of my highest scoring teams on Underdog are Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield teams, and I thought that was just nothing special. I don't have like insight on it. I was just like, that's weird. Also, the Kyle Pitts is on 2 of the 3, and I was like, all right, I think this tells me everything I need to know about 4 weeks of results because Kyle Pitts is fucking useless, and he's on teams just scoring a shit ton of points, like an actual shit ton of points. But I don't want to like belabor the OC conversation and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's an interesting time to like reflect, but not overreact. If that makes any sense. Like we need to learn lessons for sure and think about things as they're happening and like maybe jot them down or whatever, because you'll forget it by week 17. But also we don't want to say like, dude, week 4, like we've solved all this stuff, because if we did this in week 2, if you and I did the show in week 2, we would be just gushing over the Saints. And And I'm not saying that I'm mad about. I'm not saying I'm out on the Saints, because that's definitely not true. But now we saw 2 weeks of, it's fine. It's like it's better than we thought maybe, but it's not like after 2 weeks we were like, oh fuck, greatest show on turf. Like, oh my God, so it's that ebb and flow. I think that's really, and everybody usually just trends towards the panic side. Everybody that you faded, that's good, you panic. And everybody that you draft, that sucks, you panic.
Right. That's a great point about the Saints. I mean, I do think the Saints will be a pleasant surprise this year, but obviously, we were over enthusiastic after week 2. I remember Leone heading into DFS that week. Everyone was like, "You're under protecting the Saints," and then they did not have a good week. They did. I guess they didn't have a terrible week, but it wasn't amazing.
Week 3 was the biggest disaster of all time. Eagles, Kamara ran like 25 times for 2 yards a carry or something like that. That's when I was like, okay, we've definitely jumped the shark on Clint Kubiak, because you can no reasonable, like, to our McVay, Shanahan point or whatever. People were ready to put Clint Kubiak in there. And then I watched week 3 and I'm just like, there's no chance. You can't show up and score 6 points or whatever at home against Philly, running Alvin Kamara 25 times and getting nowhere.
Yeah, they're really run heavy, which is the other thing. I also do like, I think I'm not the best person to speak to this, but Davis had a good take cast with the Match Quarters dude. And he was on Kevin Cole's podcast as well. And just like talking about like how one thing jumped out is like mentioning like Mike Zimmer, who like used to be like one of the biggest defensive, geniuses in the league. Right. But now he was like, yeah, all this stuff is static now. Like nothing's changing post snap or anything. And
it's like Mike Martz. He's like the Mike Martz of coordinators.
Yeah.
They kind of like are a part of a group that revolutionizes football and doesn't adapt. And then they get left behind and they're archaic.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's not that much we can do for that for best ball, because I'm not going to go like week 17 they play like a not great DC. But I mean, that seems insane.
I'm kind of into that as a bit, though. I'm not going to.
Yeah, I mean, as a bit, I think I'm in. But it is definitely interesting to think about. Cody Alexander, by the way.
We need OC matchups. We're going to put this in the draft hacker for next year. It's the opposing offensive coordinator and the opposing defensive coordinator as options to show on your screen.
It is interesting. But yeah. Look up Cody Alexander stuff if you're curious for more defensive takes. But yeah, the coaching thing, like, I guess what I'm not saying that like, oh, I want to like only focus on the teams with OCs who I think are like really good, because that's one, I'm gonna be wrong about who's like really good in that upcoming year. And then 2, like with McDaniel, right? Like, is he really good? Like, yeah, but he loses his quarterback and it all kind of falls apart. Or like, would Sean Payton would have been on that list at some point? I don't think he's on it now, but like, when do you kind of take guys on and remove? When do you put guys on and take them off and everything? You're just going to be wrong. It's like a lot. It's going to be very noisy. But as I sit here today, and maybe I think this is probably something that would be nice to remember next. In August of 2025, like just the fact that Kevin O'Connell has gotten this run out of this Vikings team is kind of nuts. Like, even if it all regresses and by the end of the year, we're like, yep, you just want to invest in the good quarterbacks. The good quarterbacks are the way to play. The OCs are overrated, and it's the quarterbacks who matter. I mean, I could very well see us thinking that by the end of the season, because it's more in line with what we usually think. But like, still, to see what like Matt LaFleur did with Malik Willis, and then Jordan Love coming back, and they're in comeback mode, they're putting up points, like
on an awesome defense.
Yeah, on an awesome
really
defense.
Impressive what Jordan Love and the Packers did. I mean, falling behind was bad, but the comeback was really impressive.
Yeah. And like, then when I think through situations where I'm like, hey, remember that like failed Bills OC? Maybe him going with like Deshaun Watson, who doesn't care about football like at all anymore. It's like an absolute piece of shit. Like, maybe that's not going to work. Maybe like just don't take any of their guys. Maybe take Amari Cooper in case he gets traded to the Chiefs because Rashee Rice tears his ACL. That's about the only thing you should do. Don't take Jerome Ford. Take Chuba Hubbard, because who knows? The Canals guy actually seems pretty good. Maybe that'll help.
This is Pepe Sylvia. Like, how could someone figure out how to draft a Chuba Hubbard and not Jerome Ford, right? But take Amari Cooper, but not David Njoku, and take this guy or whatever. The dots that you have to do on the you got to be smoking a pack of cigs and trying to connect all these dots.
These dots shouldn't.
The Browns dots were easy. The Browns dots were a straight fucking line.
Remember how that guy had Josh Allen as quarterback and still managed to get fired mid-season, and then gave an opening press conference where it's like, I don't know, everything I've heard about Watson is that he's a great guy. That guy's probably a fucking idiot.
Yes. Okay. The Browns specific example was the cleanest thing to diagnose ever. Okay, like world's worst human
the best
quarterback.
We're too open-minded. We should have been more close-minded on that one.
Yeah, everybody needs to get on Twitter more and close off, because if you go on Twitter, like everybody knows everything and they're closed off, right, from the whole world. It's like I know how to solve COVID. I know how to solve politics in the United States. COVID. Like everybody that's out there knows all the fucking answers, right, on Twitter to everything. They are best ball experts.
It is crazy.
Geopolitical experts, fucking science experts, everything, right? So. But we try to be open-minded to all of this stuff, right? Like I know Bryce Young stinks, but like the Panthers, Canales, Deontay, right? We'll be open-minded to it. We were so open-minded that we saw the Browns, and every detail said, "Run for the fucking hills,
run for your life."
Please, God, get away from this. How could anyone invest in this? And we were just like, yeah, but like, what if Deshaun Watson bounces back? I know last time he was good. I was in high school, and like but we were so open-minded to it. But I think it's that line to try to draw. Like, I feel really good about the Chuba Hubbard teams. I didn't draft much Deontay Johnson. Certainly feel pretty fucking good. Baker,
2 years ago, if Baker didn't work out with a buck, we'd be like, he was like the least efficient quarterback, and then he like shows up with this like dude who like had got one good year at Geno Smith, and we're like, that'll work again. Like, no, of course it won't. It won't work. Well, it did work. Worked really well. But like these things look. I mean, a lot of this is hindsight bias, but I think I do wonder how much of the Browns win is hindsight bias. We should have maybe,
I want to. I am trying to be more positive and more optimistic and all that fun stuff, because I can be a little cynical. I'm still intrigued by David Njoku because I thought he looked pretty good. Now Deshaun Watson looks absolutely horrible. They for any Browns life, you need them to finally just say, okay, we got them to
trade Amari, and then maybe like when Njoku comes back, there's targets and everything.
Yeah,
that would be kind of cool. But Watson's in like EPA and stuff. He's the worst quarterback that will be starting in week 4. Skylar Thompson and Bryce Young are the only ones who were worse.
Wasn't he through 3 weeks like one of the worst EPA per play quarterbacks of all time, or something like that? I don't know if it was Kevin or somebody puts. I'm misquoting. So please, no one quote me on this. But there was something that like his performance.
He was better than Bryce Young. So
so maybe Bryce is the worst. Like I said, fucking Spider-Man meme. Bryce Young and Deshaun Watson. We were drafting them the same player.
He's quite a bit better in EPA per play than Bryce Young has been this year. But he's looking at this is on rbsdm.com. He's at minus 0.62 EPA per play. Will Levis has actually been slightly worse. Although
all the turnovers.
And the adjusted one that like downweights turnovers a little bit. Watson's second worst, but Bryce Young is like literally twice as bad. He's at minus 0.253 for Watson, and then minus 0.506. That's exactly twice as bad.
Oh my God. And then you see Andy Dalton. What's Dalton at? Do you have Dalton on there? Because
Dalton,
he's been quite good.
Yeah, so in the same adjusted metric.
And they both played 2 games, so.
Dalton is 7th. Yeah. So it's Daniels, Josh Allen, Derek Carr, Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy, Joe Burrow, and Andy Dalton.
Just like
then
we
Baker
expected.
Mayfield, then Lamar.
That's if you asked me to list that in July, that's exactly the order I would have said. For sure.
You know what I probably wouldn't have guessed? That Kirk Cousins would have been 19th and Justin Fields would have been 12th.
So Sam Darnold is in the top 6. Justin Fields is 12th. Andy Dalton is 7th.
Justin Herbert's 25th. Trevor Lawrence 27th.
That list is like the greatest example of everything we're talking about here, right? Like there's a bunch
Jalen
of
Hurts
the
is
OC.
21st.
Now I'm not talking about Arthur Smith necessarily, but there's a bunch of the OC stuff in that list that we talked about. There's a bunch of the chaos stuff where like we just really don't know shit, man. Like we really don't know very much.
We also like let me pull up last year through 4 weeks on this because it's not as some of it is just like any 4-week sample of an NFL season. It's going to look nuts.
Yeah.
So let's see through 4 weeks in 2023. Adjusted EPA per play. Number 1, Purdy. Number 2, this actually looks pretty normal. Number 2, Tua. Number 3, Josh Allen. Number 4, Mahomes. All right, so I guess everything. Oh wait, Russell Wilson was 5th.
Yeah.
So there's some weird stuff. Let's see. Anyone down here towards the bottom? Joe Burrow was 31st through 4 weeks.
Maybe Joe Burrow is just not that great.
Well, he's actually doing pretty well this year.
Oh, this year, yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was thinking he was on the bottom end. That was Lawrence and Herbert.
I mean, to undermine my own point, this list actually looks like pretty reflective of how last year felt outside of Joe Burrow and Russell
But you're
Wilson.
absolutely spot on that any it's like a fun exercise, but like any 4-week sample. So famously, not actually famously, but what was it? 2 years ago that Darnold started in Carolina? 2 or 3 years ago? One of the two.
No, it was 2 years ago.
It's not particularly important, but if you recall, so I am a Sam Darnold slappy. Okay, hand up. I thought he was going to be good. I drafted him on the Jets. I have definitely played Sam Darnold in DFS before this season. before this season, I fully admit to being continually bought in on that. Yes, 100%. I coped when he went to Carolina. I was just like, dude, look at I did the same shit I just did this year. So it only took 6 tries for me to finally be right on the Sam Darnold thing. The Carolina thing was like, dude, McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, he's going to be good, And I think they might, I forget who they had, Hayden Hurst or, somebody at tight end. I'm like, he's going to, why is he going in the last round of fantasy drafts or whatever? And then the first month at this exact point of the season, if you and I would have talked, Sam Darnold was leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns. He was like the QB2 in fantasy. Like, I don't know if that's the exact number. I can look it up, but he was smashing.
He was smashing through 4 weeks.
He was absolutely smashing. If anybody recalls, it did not go very well the rest of the season.
Through 4 weeks of the 2022 season, he was quarterback 11 in EPA per play. He finished quarterback 11 in EPA per play that season.
He finished oh wow.
Yeah.
I wish I had known that.
That might have been the composite. Hang on, that I might have don't
No, too late. It confirms my priors.
It confirmed your priors, so it's real now.
I'm running with
Wait, so is it 2022 that he had that season?
It's got to be 2021 then.
That's what it was, just the wrong season, and it was a small sample. All right, let's look through one. So 2021 weeks 1 through 4. Yeah, sorry, buddy. Weeks 1 through 4. Sam Darnold was quarterback 14 in adjusted EPA per play. If we expand it to the whole season, and let's raise the minimum. By the way, I expanded I lowered the minimum dropbacks. Do you want to take a guess who the third quarterback is?
Third, this year? So you lowered the minimum. So
I lowered the minimum.
Somebody that hasn't played very much.
Yeah. I lowered it to 40 dropbacks. It was still high. It's a multi-game guy. A
multi-game guy. Why am I blanking here? I don't know. Just tell me.
Malik Willis.
Oh, that makes so much sense. He was awesome. He just got probably 2 more contracts out of those 2 games.
I know. I mean, certainly as a backup.
Yeah. As a backup. Nobody's. Yeah. I mean, maybe.
But having a good backup is so valuable.
He should just stay in Green Bay for a few million a year or whatever.
100%.
Be insulated from all the bullshit.
So Darnold dropped from, I think, what did I say, quarterback 14 to quarterback 41 in the full season.
Yeah. See, so
So he can turn. So Darnold specifically.
Yeah, it's This is really. I said I wanted to be more positive, and then we came on and just shit all over my Sam Darnold and Minnesota Vikings bags. I will say, I feel again. We'll do this again in another month or something, and I can feel really foolish for saying this. I feel better because of everything you talked about with KOC. Justin Jefferson is kind of a floor elevator for quarterbacks. They have a lot of talent. When Hawkinson gets back, buddy, Jalen Naylor looks like a competent third wide receiver in an NFL offense. Addison is good. Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver on the planet. So I feel pretty good about whoever starts at quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. But just again, in that season that you just talked about, how crazy things can look for 4 weeks versus how we look back at it at the end of the year. And that exact same season for Sam Darnold through 4 weeks, he was the QB5, like basically neck and neck with all the superstars. Mahomes, Kyler, Hurts, Tom Brady that season, and Darnold is the top 5. He was averaging 24.4 not DK, right? So underdog scoring, 24.4 fantasy points per game, fresh off of a 33.5 fantasy point performance in week 4 as the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, Sam Darnold. And so you're like, everybody's like, late round quarterback, right? It's solved. Daniel Jones was the QB6 at that point. So if it was like, if you just drafted Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, look at how awesome your teams would be doing. They're just crushing. Fast forward a little bit to the end of that season, and you would not be feeling that same way. So there's a million examples like that on both sides of the coin where guys start out slow and turn it on. And so I just think that's like the biggest thing to think about. But we can think about like how we feel about some of the things we felt heading into the season.
Do you want to do a little prediction?
Oh yeah.
Let me share the screen.
Yes.
Here. So this is the list that I've been referencing, rbsdm.com, great site, check it out. So I did a 90 drop back minimum just to get, so like Jordan Love makes the cut, but like Andy Dalton doesn't. But anyway, so fairly high for 4 weeks in, but this gives us 30 quarterbacks. Okay. So what I'm thinking would be fun is that we each pick a quarterback going outside the top, that's currently outside the top 20.
Okay.
In EPA per play, who finishes inside, let's say, the top 12. And then we take a quarterback who's in the top 12. Top 10? Okay.
Yeah.
Top 10. Yeah.
Outside the top 20, finishes in the top 10. And then inside the top 10 finishes outside the top 20.
Yeah. Okay.
Fuck.
Yeah. It's
that's tough. Ooh, that list is tough because Darnold sticks out like a sore thumb. Okay, I want to.
Do you want to do the guy? Do you want to do the bad?
It's so much easier
one
to
first.
Yeah. It's so much easier to. That top 10 is rough to pick a different.
But I'll say Baker Mayfield.
Damn it, that's what I was going to pick.
I could tell you were going to go there. And I didn't want to do Darnold.
I'm not taking Darnold because I don't want to root. I don't want to rejoice in him falling out of here. And Derek Carr's so high up that is such a. I was like, maybe someone closer to the back end of the top 10, and it's definitely not going to be Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers.
I might have another one if you want to make the Mayfield case.
I mean, so the Baker Mayfield case is like kind of the clearest one I think of it, maybe other than Derek Carr, but he's up so high. That's a pretty insane fall to 21 or below. Baker Mayfield thing is so one, and I guess Kyler didn't prove this thesis to be true. Through a 4-week sample, the matchups are pretty helpful in terms of your EPA per play, per dropback basis. And what Baker Mayfield did against the Washington Commanders, I believe he was first on this list after week 1, was just like straight carving station. like it was every drop back. He would get pressured and he would escape. And then he'd either scramble for a first down or find somebody for a touchdown. And I have that just ingrained in my brain that week. I faded him at DFS, by the way. I'm not salty about it at all. And I'm like, it's just so ingrained in my brain that they looked unstoppable against Washington. And I've watched every Bucs game since. and they have looked the opposite. Like you said, they're like PPR scamming a real life NFL offense almost. And I think that just as Baker has made a lot of growth, and there is talent on this offense, but if there's anyone on here other than Sam Darnold that would turn it back into a pumpkin and the Baker Mayfield that we've known and loved for a long, long time, and no Dave Canales in Tampa Bay, etc. He kind of sticks out to me as this is the least trustworthy one in that top 10.
Me too. I almost am tempted to say Kyler too. Just maybe I'm pretty salty after last week. I mean, you're supposed to like light up this Commanders defense, and just did not look good.
Marv Carr touchdown on the first drive, and I was thinking, like, so again, salty about DFS. I had Marv and Higgins and B-Rob, and only B-Rob really did his part, even though Jeremy fucking McNichols scored two touchdowns. And I was just sitting there like I'm just waiting for the explosion from Kyler, Marv, and co. And it was like, it was bad. It was straight up. The passing game was horrific yesterday against Washington.
Yeah, and like he's usually been a better fantasy scorer than he has in efficiency. So that's, if you're not super familiar with like the EPA rankings and stuff, he actually hasn't like always been that great. I think he's usually like in the mid-teens. So him falling off, like if last week is any indication, he could fall off outside the top 20. He'd probably be like 21 or 22.
Yeah, he's not gonna have the Darnold fall, but like,
no,
you know, what do you think? So while we're on the Cardinals, they're an interesting one that I've been thinking a little bit about. It wouldn't have stopped. I mean, I love Trey McBride's one of my highest on tight ends. I love him. Once he gets back healthy, I think he'll be fine. I think Marv is fine. James Conner's been good, whatever. But I do have like something that's been sticking in my brain since I talked to some people about it over late summer, like very, very late, with the Cardinals. I was looking at an offense, and like everybody on at the skill positions other than the quarterback, like if their Madden speeds would be like fucking 84. Like there's no juice in this offense, and that was never more apparent than yesterday when they don't have Trey McBride to bail them out underneath. Because as good as Marv is, he's not doing anything after the catch. He's not doing the Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill home run balls really. He's kind of Nuke-esque, right? He's Devontae Adams or Nuke in his upside case. And then Dortch is Dortch, and Michael Wilson is just a dude. And so like we have these offenses like them, the Rams are similar to this as well, where there's just not any juice, right? Like, so like if you fall behind, how are you going to come back? Like, or how are you going to create explosive plays when James Conner's your running back and your best wide receiver runs a 4.6? It's just like one of those weird things that's stuck in my brain. And then I'm probably really, really biased to yesterday because I was just watching, like waiting for any form of life, and there was nothing, and they looked juiceless.
Yeah, no, it was really frustrating. And I mean, I think the thing with Kyler is like he doesn't really throw to the middle of the field. I mean, he throws like shallowly to the middle of the field, but he doesn't like really attack the deep middle. He had a lot of sideline throws. And so it's going to be a bit boom bust. Obviously, he can create with his legs, and he can be really, really, really fun. But yeah, it was just a really disappointing day because it's a pretty good matchup.
Doesn't get much better.
Yeah.
If it gets better, tell me who it is than Washington, because they also score and they play fast. Yeah. So like you're getting the pace, you're getting pushback no matter what, or you're trailing. They were trailing. And anyway, not to turn it into a Cardinals thing, but it was just something I've been thinking about as well, where, I mean, when you just look at the Madden rating, this is one where, Mike McDaniel sorts by speed. The Cardinals sorted by overall and didn't look at speed, right? They don't care. They just took the top guy of the queue, and the top guy of the queue every single time in their fantasy draft happened to be really, really slow other than their quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, maybe see if Harrison can throw the ball at all. He's pretty tall.
Yeah, right. Kyler in the middle. I like that. Okay, so we got to pick a outside. So Daniel Jones is 20th, right? So we have to pick.
So he doesn't count. He's in the top 20.
Well, I wasn't going to take fucking Daniel.
That's how I go to you were going to take him.
I got enough invested in the Giants and Daniel Jones in best ball. I'm not making a friendly wager on him becoming a top 10 quarterback. Okay. Richardson, Minshew, for audio listeners, the outside the top 20 is
I'll zoom in a little
disgusting. Anthony Richardson, who I'm not entirely certain when he's going to come back and play after Joe Flacco came in this week. Gardner Minshew, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Jesus, Jacoby Brissett, Bo Nix, Will Levis, and Deshaun Watson. Woof. So I'm just going to ramble about who it's not, and it's almost this entire list. It's not
yeah, it's probably not any of them.
It's not Deshaun Watson. It's not Will Levis. It's not Bo Nix. It's not Jacoby Brissett. We could paint a fun story for Caleb Williams, but I don't really want to dive into it. But number 1 overall pick with a lot of weapons.
Yep.
I don't think I could paint that story for Trevor Lawrence. Can you paint that story for Trevor Lawrence?
I mean, so you want to talk about the coaching stuff. I mean, how about fake coaching upgrades, right? Because like we heard, because we got one of these, we got a fake coaching upgrade with the Falcons. You know, we're getting a coaching upgrade, and it's gonna be great. You guys won't believe what a big upgrade it'll be. And it's not really that big of an upgrade. It's
for
probably
Ray McLeod. It's a great fucking upgrade for Ray McLeod.
Darnell
Mooney.
Yeah, it's a decent, but it's not that great for London. It's not that great for Bijan. You know, it's okay. It's okay, but like they're like a functional NFL offense, I guess. You know, whereas like a lot of times last year they weren't. But like, how much of that is just them having Cousins?
Yeah,
we got a fake. Fake is the wrong word, but overblown. An overblown offensive.
I think fake is
coordinator
fine.
Upgrade. Well,
I think fake is fine. Arthur Smith is cooking. Arthur Smith is cooking with Justin Fields and 4 offensive linemen being down, and Jalen Warren is hurt, and then CPAC got hurt.
looks as bad as he ever has.
Najee, that was disgusting. That was a fucking crime against football. What Najee Harris was doing yesterday. CPAT was balling, dude. When CPAT was their only life on offense. Justin Fields either got sacked or the ball got tipped at the line of scrimmage, and Najee Harris ran for -1 yards on every run.
Well, when he needs a yard, no one gets as high up in the air when they need 1 yard as Najee Harris.
Did you see him try to hurdle? They had it was like, and it was a long one. It was 4th or 3rd? I can't remember. A long one, like closer to.
It was a long
yards.
one.
And he tried to hurdle. He did not get far enough on the actual jump.
He got high up.
He got jumped straight up and had to slither, you know, because he's 250 pounds or whatever. And like he's awful. Like you and I did the thing where I was like, I much prefer Jalen Warren, just like you. I'm no arguments, but I'm gonna be. And I do think this was a fine process. It led me to other good things. But Najee was the tax I paid to have better best ball teams this year, where I was like, every other year I would take 0 Najee and all Warren. And this year I opened my eyes to these worst running backs.
I took Najee. Yeah, I didn't take as much as I probably should have, although I'm glad I didn't now. But
I regret every share.
Yeah. But I guess so. I was so this one, right. It was probably just fake. This upgrade is probably just fake. I was gonna then generalize it to, or take this and apply it to the Urban Meyer, Doug Peterson upgrade, which was an upgrade. And I honestly think the Robinson from Smith was probably an upgrade, but it's just not as big of an upgrade as maybe we were hoping it would be.
We put Drake London at the 1-2 turn because of this upgrade, man.
Yeah,
I know Cousins is involved in that too, and I got a 4-0 main event team with Drake London, Garrett Wilson as my first 2 picks. So no one knows, no one like, I feel really good about that, but also I'm like, my God, can you imagine if I had
if I didn't wait until the 3rd round to show up.
Nico Collins 3rd round. Like, just take Nico in the fucking 1st round and take some actual good wide receivers in the 2nd and 3rd. But I think
Lawrence's offense does not look well designed at all. And I don't and there seems to be remember when there were 2 OCs for the Dolphins?
Oh, yes.
It's kind of like that, isn't it? There's the roles aren't super well defined and who's calling plays, and they keep changing
press are just butt buddies, right? They're like bros. They kind of divide up the offensive responsibility. I don't even know who does what.
I don't think they know.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Pick an OC.
Dude, the other thing, so I had some people watching the football games with me yesterday, and we had, of course, the Jags game on, and Trevor Lawrence is like spiraling out of control, man. Like I do think it's a lot of coaching. I think that there's still some talent there, but who knows if that's true. He's doing this, the quarterback does the spin move. Fields is very good at it, actually. Like you're in the pocket and you're getting the rush, and you spin move back out to leave the rusher
right
underneath you, and get out of the pocket.
Tyler likes this move.
Yeah, it's a big thing that like all the quarterbacks are kind of learning this thing. Lawrence has like not learned how to do it, but fallen in love with it.
He's so bad at it, dude.
He's so bad at it, and he now does it. He's seeing ghosts, dude. He's totally seeing.
He
ghosts.
does it. He did it, and then he like ran back. He like got
the wrong
dizzy.
way. Yeah.
Yes, he got dizzy.
He did dizzy bat.
Like, he needs to do dizzy bat to practice. His inner ear is all out of whack.
His spin move is, if you're listening to this or watching this, watch the next Jags game and watch how many times Trevor Lawrence tries to spin out. And like sometimes there's no pressure and he spins out. Yeah. And he'll stumble.
I'm telling you, man.
He looks like a drunk college kid. Yeah. Playing dizzy bat, doing the spin move.
Yeah. It's just, can you imagine showing up at the Jags practice field? Lawrence is just doing dizzy bat. Spin move.
With Peterson standing next to him, counting. Peterson's doing the counting. 1, 2. Okay. And he tosses him the beer. He has to hit it. That's Jags. If you're wondering who does what in the Jags coaching staff, we just figured it out.
Peterson's the one who tosses the beers. He does seem like he'd have a good beer toss.
Yeah. Him and Stephon Diggs. There's a couple moments. Diggs, one of the biggest shit talkers in the league.
Oh yeah.
Caught a ball and like dove on the sideline, but it got called back by holding or something. And he happened to catch it right in front of Doug Peterson, and he's talking shit to the sideline, and Doug like got all fired up and like steps up to Stephon Diggs and starts pointing back at the flag. And Diggs don't give a fuck about Doug Peterson. Like he's like, who the hell are you? I'll talk shit to you. And watching Doug Peterson and Stephon Diggs like have it out on the football field, I was like, yeah, I think it's over for Doug Peterson. He's now he has lost it so bad. They're about to be 0-4, and he's out there having a shit talking fit with like one of the scummier shit talkers in the entire league during the game.
Oh man, yeah. Maybe trade Doug Peterson for a second round pick, Jags. See if you can get that done.
To be serious for a couple seconds, you nailed this one, the Jags one. We did our flag plant episode with Daigle, I believe the last episode that we did the week before the season started, and I flag planted Trevor Lawrence as my quarterback, and he is ever so slightly my highest owned quarterback. And similar to the Najee thing, I certainly wish I could take it back. I'm not like upset about the process, really, but I am just looking back, like I definitely probably didn't factor in enough of some of the things that you said. And again, it goes back to this coaching stuff. I also think the talent is not that good. Gabe is not that good. Christian
Thomas looks pretty good though, man. I can see
Brian Thomas is awesome.
He could take another step like from this. Like he's been good so far, but like we're 4 games into this guy's career and he was a raw prospect. Like
he's the best player on their offense. He's the best player on their offense.
I liked him. I was pretty in on Thomas. I think, the teammate correlation has been, I think, an important thing to consider. And like, we think Neighbors is going to be awesome. If Neighbors it's like, oh, Thomas was kind of pigeonholed into this like deep threat role. He didn't have good targets per route run, but he made big plays downfield. It's like, well, if Neighbors is an absolute superstar and you're just like a star, that's kind of the role like you might find yourself in,
right?
And he did, and he was like really efficient at that, and he scored a ton of touchdowns, and like, so you had to squint a little bit to see him being like a true star at the NFL level. It requires Neighbors being like a true superstar, but like he is, I feel very confident in that.
We should have taken BTJ on more Neighbors teams.
On more Neighbors teams for sure.
Because that correlation is really,
they're actually
really
correlated.
I agree with you.
Yeah. But Thomas could take another step forward. Like if this offense really clicks, it's because Thomas just becomes like a true number 1 wide receiver, which I think is pretty plausible.
Kirk is so miscast. I do think they need Evan Ingram. I know that that's a really sad thing to say, but Brenton Strange is not him. And I think Evan Ingram from you guys have joked about the exposure blanket, right? To make you feel, because Evan Ingram feels like that for Trevor Lawrence, just like
in real life.
In real life, like maybe he'll do the spin move like 3 times less because he'll just check it down to Evan Ingram.
Dude, is he spinning when he would throw it to Ingram? Are those Ingram targets?
Dude, if Ingram's back next week, we're going to see the half spin, half pass from Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be like full Dance Revolution.
I want to see if we can correlate, if we can figure out, like, dude, Trevor Lawrence used to spin 4 times a game. Hopeless dizzy spins are down from 4 to 1. Dude, it's an Ingram effect.
I have a pathetic life. If you don't think I'll go back and watch that game and count the amount of spin moves, chart Trevor Lawrence spin moves. It'll only take me like 15 minutes, dude. The all 22
let's pick at let's go to Cincinnati and pick at the PFF offices until they add a new column called spins on dizzy spins.
I'm gonna message Yankee and be like, can you, in your rotation of snap counts and stuff tweets, can you put Trevor Lawrence spin moves?
And every week it's just for every quarter it's gonna be 0 0 0 0 0 Trevor Lawrence 4 0 0 0. Unless Zach Wilson plays, he liked that move.
Yes, Wilson liked it too. Fields definitely does it. As well. He fumbled once on the spin move this week. But that tells you about who loves the spin moves. Generally, not like Lamar's not doing the spin move. Okay, the really good guy, the 2-time MVP, not a big spin move guy.
He had a moonwalk. That was pretty sweet.
Yes. He's ridiculous. Lamar is absolutely insane. So. All right.
So it's not Lawrence.
It's not. We've decided that Lawrence in the last half hour. We figured out that Trevor Lawrence is not him in terms of moving up here. I'm gonna go Jared Goff.
That's what I was gonna do. Yeah, that's a good one.
So I'm cheating. Actually, I think you talked me into earlier that I kind of think Kyler might be the better pick than Baker, but we'll see. But Goff to me is really just the Lions bet. It's that offense is awesome. That offense rocks. Jameson Williams becoming a thing is like unbelievable for this offense. I think him being down in 24th so far, he had a really bad Bucs game, like really, really bad Bucs game. He basically lost them that game at home against Tampa. And I just, better days are for sure ahead for Jared Goff. And I think starting tonight, I think they might just run right through Seattle tonight. And I'm not a big Jared Goff fan, but dude, Ben Johnson, that offensive line, those weapons, the dome, a pretty cozy schedule. I think he's kind of the slam dunk here.
Yeah, I've been playing these stupid games way too long, but like, what a sharp move to take a guy that's only played 3 games. If you're trying to pick the biggest riser, get that smaller sample of bad play. I mean, very, very well done.
Yes.
I'm gonna do Caleb.
Oh, Will Levis is available for you. He's only played 3 games.
Yeah, I guess I could pick Will Levis, but I'm gonna go ahead and take Caleb Williams. If we're when we do ADP chasing, one of the little tricks to the game we play, which I've won twice. We've only played it twice. I've won twice. We do closing line value. One of the little tricks is that if a guy is rising, he's probably going to keep rising to some extent. And so let's look at, like, are we getting any improvement out of Caleb Williams? We actually have seen improvement out of Caleb Williams over the last 2 weeks. He's up front. So he's got 0.032 EPA per play through the last 2 weeks. And through the first 2 weeks, he was considerably worse. Let's see. Caleb Williams was at minus 2.83, which is, if you remember, like kind of where Deshaun Watson has been this season. So he basically went from like Deshaun Watson level to, somewhat respectable over the last couple weeks. So he's probably like, I forget exactly what. So I think he would have slotted in like quarterback 19 over the last 2 weeks after being like worst quarterback in the league kind of level. before that. So we are starting to see Caleb Williams improve a little bit. Obviously, we thought a lot about him coming in as a prospect. So I still think he's live to be pretty exciting down the stretch. Your Caleb teams are probably, if we're coping about stuff, I think one of the more realistic things to cope about is that Caleb Williams actually does have a really good rookie year. And he just didn't have a first good, his first two games with Shane Waldron as his OC weren't great, but eventually he overcame that.
And Keenan Allen is back. I'm not saying that Keenan Allen is, the Keenan Allen of old, but I think the upgrade from DeAndre Carter to Keenan Allen running those routes is not only big for Caleb Williams, it's big for what that means for Rome Odunze and DJ Moore on the outside. DJ Moore finally having a good game in week 3. Rome had a really nice game, in week 4. Rome had a really nice game in week 3. I agree. I was kind of going back and forth. I thought Goff was just too much of a slam. If Goff was
the slam dunk.
If Goff was 19th on this list, well, then I guess there would be Hurts. Although I don't know how I feel about all that great about Jalen Hurts. But Caleb was the other guy that I was considering. It's also like we want so badly for young players it to happen immediately, or even if it's not happening immediately, we want things to be, because we want it to make sense to us. We want things to be linear, right? It's like, okay, week 1 was bad. Week 2 is a little bit better. Week 3 is a little bit better. Week 4 is a little bit better. And then it builds up and eventually he's Mahomes. And it's like, it kind of doesn't really work that way. Like you come in and you're like, Caleb looked like kind of rattled and shell shocked. And like you said, his offensive coordinator's not helping him out. Then Keenan Allen gets hurt. The offensive line's not very good. And it's like, generally there's more of like, and not really like a switch flips, but it is a little bit more like that, where like eventually the experience builds up and you're just like a lot better player, as opposed to like I'm gaining like a couple XP, right, or whatever fucking video game you're playing. Like I gain a couple points this week and a couple points this week, and I upgrade this skill the next week. It's like it doesn't work like that. You kind of just like you're a bad player until you're not. Almost like there's only so many Malik Neighbors and Jamar Chases of the world. A lot of the times it takes these guys a little bit.
Well, because one of the things that I've noticed, and this shows up in the data, I talked about this heading into week 3, and not as like a way to define what Williams will be, but just like kind of like, this dude's really struggled. What's going on? And it was just, he showed up very similar to stuff I looked at with Sam Howell last year, where like he's hanging in the pocket, but he's not coming off the primary design of the play. And then something bad happens, like a sack or even like a throwaway, but like he's not even targeting someone. So like just value getting sucked out of the offense for fantasy. And you know, when you watch him, I saw him do this past week, where like he's hanging in the pocket, and he's reading out, it's like it's not happening, eyes drop, and he's like looking around, and then he gets sacked. And like that's the very kind of classic Howell thing, where like, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? I can't. What else can I do? Nothing. It's too late.
Too late.
Play's over. Yeah. And so the thing is, like, he can get better at that incrementally, but there's sort of like a threshold of like, did you get better at it enough so that you get to your second read in time for that guy to be open, or bail on the play entirely and scramble, like speeding up that clock. Like his clock might be speeding up every week so far, but if it's not faster than the guy who's about to sack him, then it doesn't matter to us. But it does matter.
It's all these things
over time.
Right. Your point is so spot on, to where it has to speed up to the point to where it now becomes an instinct, right? Football is all instinctual. Even playing the quarterback, like, you know, you're going through your reads and stuff, but like you said, he's holding on to, let's just use that example. He's sticking on DJ Moore. He's saying, that's my first read. I'm sticking. Is it going to be here? Oh shit. It's not. Now it's too late. And so then my eyes come down. Now I'm looking at the pressure, and you know, you've waited so long. You don't understand the timing aspects. And then it's like a switch. Once it becomes the instinct to come off that at the right time and find the next one, or find the check down, or get out, or get the fuck out of there, which is what he probably should do given his kind of playmaking ability. Yeah. It just becomes it goes from I'm failing at this to it's so instinctual. It just now it happens. It doesn't kind of right. Like you said, you don't get like 5% better, 5% better, 5% better. You might actually be getting 5% better.
You
but
might actually be getting 5% better.
It doesn't show up in the play.
Yeah, exactly. Like because I mean, he could like, I don't know, like I don't have the exact like how long is he keeping his eyes downfield until
right.
Like maybe it was
data. We don't have that.
It was 5% faster this week, but like. And he is. I've seen him like make some sweet throws and do some cool stuff. I'm still optimistic about Caleb Williams. I think, I guess what I'm saying is like I think it does look to me, and again in the data a little bit like he's still getting used to the speed of the game. But like, so what? Like he's 4 games in, so like that's not a huge deal. Like what you want though is for him to like have gotten used to the speed of the game by like another 2 or 3 games from now, and then like be playing fast like another 2 or 3 games from then, and now we're like, oh shit, he is him. He is the guy we wanted. So, I think I like that he's improved the last 2 weeks. I mean, I do think that's definitely creating some hope for him to continue to take step forward in probably in like. Spurts, and when he gets good matchups, and he just had a good matchup and he played okay. And he probably look bad in some hard matchups coming up, but like it'll be a little herky jerky. But yeah, I think God, the Waldron stuff. I mean, Waldron is not going to make this easy, but I think Williams eventually gets there.
I think so too. I think everybody was very, very worried to start, and I get it, and he could end up sucking. That's how it goes. But in terms of the "aren't you worried" scale, there's a whole shitload of things across the NFL I am very worried about, and Caleb Williams is much lower on that list, which is exactly what I kind of wanted to get into now. And I'm saying to close it out. I don't mean we're closing it out immediately because I know what happens when I say that kind of a thing.
Somehow it makes it longer. Yeah,
it always makes it longer. But I just mean, kind of the last couple of things to talk about. I think it would be good to talk about. It could be both from our like bags. I know you guys do some of this with ADP chasing in terms of bag defending and stuff. I don't mean to make it like that, but just like we're 4 weeks in, and we talked a lot about, things aren't always like it feels so concrete after a month, but it really isn't. And so some things that like this player has been really bad or this situation has been really bad. You just talked about Caleb. People are probably not feeling very good about Caleb, but there's a lot of reasons for optimism. You're hopeful for that person, or things are going really well for certain players. But like maybe like, okay, let's not get out over our skis on whoever, right? Chris Godwin or whatever, right? It's looking really good, but it's, let's pump the brakes. And I can kind of kick it off because I get a lot of messages. I draft a ton of 0 running back teams. The overwhelming majority of my teams are 0 running back. The only early round running backs I made exceptions for this year were Devon Achane and Kyron Williams. I did not make exceptions for Saquon Barkley. I did not make exceptions for Derrick Henry. And a lot of people think that means that I'm like upset about those things. I guess you could say I wish I had a little bit more Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, but I think it's kind of like we've talked about the tax you pay. I never thought that those guys would not score points, right? Like, Saquon Barkley's just starting like workhorse running back on the fucking Philadelphia Eagles. I'm well aware DeAndre Swift scored fantasy points. I expected Saquon, but it's as much a structural bet as it is a player take bet. And specifically with Derrick Henry, I feel cozier. I haven't sweated even when he ran for an 80-yard touchdown last night. I laughed and I thought it looked cool because he's still good at football. But I never once thought like, oh man, I'm so worried now that I don't have Derrick Henry on my best ball teams. And I think that's something.
He looked so much slower than I feel like I'm used to him going, and looked kind of like thicker through like the belly than I feel like he used to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then also just like if you were trying to chase that guy down and then like get him to fall to the earth, that would be terrifying. Like I was both like sort of like, not as impressive as he used to be. And also like, what a scary proposition to have to like stop what is happening Like, imagine, like, okay, now you go make this guy.
What's the
stop running full speed.
190-pound DB even going to do when he catches up to him? Hop on his back and get fucking carried? Fireman's carried to the end zone? Like, no. Why really just let him go? Just let him go.
Just goes to show how impressive he was at his peak, because that is still, like, just objectively in a vacuum, one of the most impressive things you've seen a person do. Derrick Henry's still pretty scary.
But it wasn't that wasn't an old. I mean, it was an old school Derrick Henry run in terms of the big long touchdown from big man go fast. But it wasn't like the break 6 tackles, stiff arm a dude in the open. Right? Remember the super famous Derrick Henry stiff arm where the guy flies through the freaking air like it's a video game.
Yes.
And like it wasn't that, right? Like the defense just, like, he just ran straight to the end. You know, it was just like they just kind of let him go. So
honestly, it was probably closer to Ronald Jones.
It was pretty Ronald Jonesy. Yeah.
It was more Ronald Jones than Vincent Derrick Henry. Being honest.
Like the 120-yard Najee Harris run that has happened in 4 years or whatever. It was kind of like that. It was like they just let him. You know what I mean? Yeah. They felt bad. But like in terms of, you know, so if I know people probably listening to this that draft similar to how you and I do, not big Derrick Henry guys. And if you are, I don't think you should feel bad about your Derrick Henry teams. But I think if you didn't draft those guys, I also don't think you should feel bad. It's week 4, and part of the thesis, this is maybe dark, but like part of the thesis of fading some of these particularly older early round running backs is the chaos element. And like, Derrick Henry ain't young. And if we're going to keep loading him up with a bunch of carries every single week, like, unfortunately, as we have seen with a bunch of players, including Rashee Rice this week, bad stuff happens. Jonathan Taylor, much younger than Derrick Henry, just got a high ankle sprain this week. He'll be fine, but a high ankle sprain is a high ankle sprain. Those things happen to running backs, period. It's part of the reason why we don't draft them. And then Derrick Henry specifically, look at Justice Hill, dude. Justice Hill is a huge thorn in the side of Derrick Henry drafters. You're not going to get he had a goal line touchdown in week 1, and Justice Hill outscored him, I believe, in PPR. And Justice Hill didn't score a touchdown in that game. Justice Hill just dropped 20 something PPR points this week. It was like it's the perfect 0 RB things. People are like, "Oh, aren't you upset you didn't draft Henry?" I'm like, not if I drafted his fucking teammate who's scoring like just as well as he is. So that's one where like that's like sort of bag defending, but also like it's easy when you draft like the way that we do to be like, damn man, those running backs are having some good games early on, and it's like zoom out a little bit and remember why you did what you did. Like it's totally fine. And the thesis for the Derrick Henry fade is exactly how we thought it was going to go.
Well, I mean, it's certainly not ideal that he's got like 22 half PPR points a game or whatever through the first. But
I mean,
he's
roll.
at 22.8.
Roll wise.
Roll wise. Yeah. But when I look at like what I wish I had done more in the first couple rounds, I do wish I'd like entertained the idea that Barkley was going to have this resurgent season, because he's not that old. So the Barkley one scares me the most of all the stuff early on, because like Barkley, I don't think was a good bet to get back to this level of efficiency at age 27. But it's been a long road. Like he's been in the NFL since 2018. Like this is not like a young running back. But having now shown he is that guy this year, like I don't now feel actually like comfortable betting against him. And it is, I guess, it is more of a 2-down role than I think people realize. It's not like, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say 2 down because he's running a lot of routes, but it's not like he's getting a ton of receiving work.
Correct.
So, maybe it is somewhat closer to Henry in terms of Jordan Mason. To have a lot of volume.
He's like Jordan Mason. Like you get your maybe 4 targets, right? Maybe 4 targets.
Yeah. So, that'll make it a little bit more fragile because he has to, carry this big workload and everything. And, it's a little bit more boom bust as far as, can he get the rushing touchdowns? Can he get the long runs? But I mean, he looks really good, and like, he's young enough that like looking this good, he's probably going to keep looking this good if he stays healthy. So that one probably scares me the most of all of them. But I think to me, I'm like, man, I wish I had more Nico Collins.
Yeah.
That's probably the one that bugs me the most, is that I don't have a ton of Nico. I didn't fade Nico Collins, but I never prioritized him. I really liked Waddle, which, like, I don't know, maybe in a different world that feels okay, but I still want, I think in that world, I still want Nico. But obviously, Waddle is like an especially egregious guy to take over Nico with the way it's gone. I'm really glad I prioritized Malik Neighbors. Sucks he got the concussion, but he looks like an absolute superstar. So, like, I do think that as we move forward, because, like, especially through 2 and 3 weeks, people are like looking at their advances, like it doesn't tell you anything. Like, it's just like the guys who have had the huge games. Like, you could like have like half a team, but if, like, Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara on it, you're probably advancing. Right. Like, not that many guys scored points. So the distribution of points will become more condensed. Like, the difference between these guys.
And we're going to have
bye weeks. Yeah. So, like, it's all going to become like the performances are going to get tighter to one another as the sample increases. And at that point, I think structure will start to shine through a little bit more, as like this stuff of like, what could you have gotten later? And, before we jumped on, you were talking about Jordan Mason, you could definitely Chuba Hubbard. Like, there are these guys. I don't have enough of either of those guys. Mason, I've been kicking myself for more because I was like, all right, I'm going to hammer Mason and P. Ryan, but I didn't hammer Mason enough, and I got probably too much P. Ryan. And
that he rose. You had to that. Out of everything, I have lots of things. I always have lots of regrets. I think the Mason one, I learned why I like having the conversations like we're having here today is just I'm continually trying to remember things to learn and think about in the future. And the Kyron, what Kyron and Puka and those guys taught me last year was really that when these you mentioned it, when the risers start rising, they keep rising.
Yeah.
And so we also talk about late summer. Why are we drafting late? Well, because we only have 24 hours in a day, and we're trying to draft 1,000 goddamn best ball teams. But information, we're gaining this information at the end of the summer. Once I've gained the information that Jordan Mason is the backup to Christian McCaffrey, that is so powerful to me that I don't really care what the price is on him. I understand ADP, like I understand all the reasons why someone would push back on that. But for me, I have a finite amount of teams I'm going to draft, and I've already drafted like more than half my teams. So if I want to get a bunch of Jordan Mason, I can't be so price sensitive, right? If I wanted to have a bunch of Kyron Williams last year, I can't be like 185 is a little rich, but 195 is fine. It's like, no, dude, you just got to get him on your teams. It doesn't really matter. And so I feel like I did a good job of that with Jordan Mason. Like,
I didn't do a good enough job.
I wouldn't have as much as I have, which is really helping carry me in the early part of the season without Saquon, without Derrick Henry, right? Like, you got to have something to go toe to toe with those guys. And if I didn't have Jordan Mason, I would not be able to do so.
Yeah. And, Jordan Mason has been an awesome hit and one that probably won't be like exactly replicated. But I also do think that we are going to have other hits from the late rounds at running back over the course of this season and create a situation where it's going to put more pressure on guys like Henry to not only keep it up, but, create enough distance between the guys that are going to become available later. And even compare, like, what if Chase Brown is now just broken out? What if, what if Jonathan Brooks is so, like, I'm mentioning these guys as not truly late round dart throws, but just guys available later, because what I don't see right now is a ton of wide receiver breakouts after like the first 9 round. Like, Rashid Shaheed has been like kind of the one dude, but like even him, I mean, we got the 2 50-yard touchdowns and everything, but he's still Rashid Shaheed.
He's more like, don't you think it's more like Trey, like super late, like a Trey Tucker that's like, this guy's useful.
Yeah, Trey Tucker's solid.
He's like, I would really like to have Trey Tucker as my last round pick.
He was barely drafted.
Yeah. But like, so like 20th round on DraftKings, if I could have Trey Tucker, awesome, dude. Sign me up for that.
Juwan Jennings.
But Trey Tucker is not Puka Nacua. Trey Tucker is not Tank Dell. Trey Tucker is like, fill in for me and have some decent weeks. You're definitely better than the price that I paid for you. But you're not like, I'm not showing up to week 17 going, haha, you fuckers, I got Trey Tucker. It's over for you. You know, that's how you felt with Kyron Williams.
The big hits have been Juwan Jennings, who was barely drafted on Underdog. You get Alec Pierce, another guy who was not getting drafted a ton. Quentin Johnston has been a solid hit. But not one that I'm like super psyched if I have, and not terrified if like, you know, I think I would take like a Neighbors. And I don't know, give me a late round running back that I would feel okay about. A Neighbors Braylon Allen.
I was just going to say Braylon. Yep.
Yeah, a Neighbors Braylon Allen versus a Derrick Henry Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, that's not close. Yeah.
Yeah. So Wandale has been a hit, I would say. Not anyone I'm super excited about, but I think he's definitely been a hit. But you're Naylor, I guess. Yoshi Vance.
Naylor and Yoshi, those are my two. That's
Darnell Mooney's been a hit.
Naylor is my second highest owned wide receiver behind Neighbors. Yoshi. So Yoshi 22%. Okay, this is across all. This is a combination across all Underdog, DraftKings, and drafters. I'll just share it so the audio people, so people don't think I'm full of shit. Across all sites, 44% Tyler Algier, which both simultaneously feels really fun and feels really like, what am I actually going to get out of it? You know, like he looks I think Tyler Algier is kind of awesome, but I don't know how useful it's going to be. But just looking for Yoshi 22, Neighbors 22, Naylor 22. Tank Dell, tough scene. Luke McCaffrey, tough scene. De'Ami Brown has been banished by Noah Brown. And that one's not very good, but there have been some hits, but I think I wanted to, those are the perfect example of like, happy I have those guys, not like changing your life. Like they're helping you advance more so than they're helping you win the tournament, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And I think the big hits would be like maybe Jameson Williams is going to be a hit that like helps people have drafted running back early and get, feel like they still have enough wide receiver firepower. But I do tend to think that over a larger sample, it won't just come down to like, did you draft? Like, there will be league winners where you say, did you have this guy? Okay, great. Then you're probably advancing. But there's like a lot of those guys right now. And that's not going to hold. It's going to dwindle. The did you have this guy group is going to get thinned out. And then then it's going to be more about how you put teams together.
Doesn't it feel like, and maybe we would have said this last year too, but last year I felt almost immediately like, Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua. I'm trying to think because I'm sure that there's some other guys, like some earlier round guys, where I just felt like, yeah, you better have assuming health, you better have these guys. I don't really feel that way about anyone. Like, because I would say that about Jordan Mason, but CMC will be back.
Yeah.
Right. So like Jordan Mason is like an advanced replay, which is like good and bad. I mean, it really tilts me. It's like, hey, congratulations, I'm going to advance a bunch more teams, but the guy who carried me to those teams,
you still have the clear backup to CMC, and if he misses any more time,
I think he's going to play too. I don't think Jordan Mason is going to go to 0 like he was before. I don't think he's going to be 50%, but I think he's going to get the
one guy I would maybe nominate is actually J.K. Dobbins.
Oh,
like
interesting.
You feel like you really would like to have.
I think I have 0.
I mean, he has been not that impressive over the last 2 weeks, 2.9 and 2.3 yards per carry. But Gus looks absolutely terrible, and they're
awful.
And he's already shown enough, Dobbins, that you're like, all right, this dude be good, could be good. But I think it's like a guy like, because like Chuba Hubbard's in the same thing as Mason. It's going to evaporate at some point.
And same thing. I think those guys have earned. It's like if I'm selling, I'm glass half fulling it. If you have these guys, it's like they've earned, like Jonathan Brooks is not turning Chuba Hubbard to 0. That's just not how it works. Like no one plays as well as Chuba Hubbard is playing, and the team says, no, let's go ahead and just you watch this rookie the whole time. He's also coming off an ACL tear. Like it's going to be a committee. you don't want, right? If I want to win week 17, I'm not winning it with like 12 Chuba Hubbard snaps. You know what I mean? Like he can help you advance still. So like that's the thing. It's been such a peculiar start that like the smashes are like these early round running backs, the Saquons and such, that like I mean it's very possible that Saquon could be that guy, but it's also very hard for a second round, 1-2 turn / second round player to be that. Like I would want Nico Collins just as much as I would want Saquon Barkley on my best ball teams. So I think it's interesting. I don't really have an answer to the like who would I think there. I guess maybe there's another one. Our game to our quarterback EPA is like who would be your bet to be the league winner. Like we look back at the end of the year and this is the guy you had to have. The Cooper Cup of 2 years ago or whatever.
I mean, I think
I would have said Rashi. I would have said Rice.
Yeah, well, Rashi would have been the dude, which is frustrating since, I mean, I guess Jaden Reed would be pretty high on my list. He looks awesome, and now Love's back. And he's kind of right in that classic range of where we tend to find the league-winning receiver.
Yeah, because he's cheap. That's the other thing is like that's the Saquon argument that I was just making. If you're a second-round pick, it's like the bar to be the guy you have to have, not just the guy you want, the guy you have to have is really hard. The 6th-round wide receiver is a 5th, 6th-round wide receiver is kind of.
But the other dude, and I was not really taking him. There's contract stuff and, falling off in efficiency. We're not that excited about the offense, but Alvin Kamara, I think you have to mention is like just not. He was not expensive and has been such a smash through 4 weeks. And looks better, he looks better than I thought he was. And I think, was a plausible, nothing about what's happening is like crazy, right? They get a new OC, an OC that comes from a system that unlocks some rushing efficiency. He still has been efficient. He was efficient last year as a receiver, Kamara. He never really fell off as a receiver. He more fell off as a rusher, but he's getting a little bit of a boost in the system. The offense as a whole takes a step forward. Now it is requiring like a lot of work, and he's old, but we knew there was no competition like at all, and so it's all funneling to him. And you're getting
once Kendra died, it was the Kamara show, and I don't feel like I reacted well enough.
I didn't react well enough to that. I think I was just like, I don't know what's going to happen, but it can't be Kamara just takes over. And
you're like, yeah, but Jamal Williams isn't going to do it, and Jordan Mims isn't going to do it. But you're also like, but Kamara's not going to do it. It's like, so what he won't do it. Yeah, so who's going to get the football?
Pat, you'll never believe this. The answer is the only guy that it could possibly
be. Only good player, yeah.
So that one's a bummer.
Taysom scored 2 touchdowns this week, which
didn't he get hurt though?
He got hurt. I don't know how serious it is. But his second touchdown, he actually lined up at running back. The first touchdown was typical Taysom.
No, I saw. I actually played him in a DFS line.
He was a good play.
Pretty well.
He was a good play. Scored a few more points than my shitty ass Elijah Higgins.
He outscored Elijah Higgins immediately.
But like on his first touch. But yeah, I actually think Taysom could like not be in the guy you have to have, but tight end is so bad. If he's okay, I thought that the role for the first couple of weeks
might be.
Yeah, I was thinking about tight ends basically. Once you mentioned, or once Taysom came up and Kamara came up, because the bar is so low to be the guy you have to have. Like Dallas Goedert is the tight end 1 in fantasy right now. He has 1 game over 10 fantasy points. Like it's just that he scored like 3, 4, 30, and then like 8. And so like he's the tight end 1 overall. So I was just thinking about that. But the problem is I don't have a great candidate to throw in there for a potential tight end. I would say,
I mean, Bowers. Bowers
I think is just like things could get pretty bad in Vegas here. Devontae, I think Devontae seems like a cool dude. I'm sure he's actually injured, but I did do a little bit of the why would he be sitting out with a hamstring injury with how bad things are going? And I think we could get a little bit of the late season, like the defense is bad. Let's just get Brock, throw it to Bowers and Trey Tucker time down the stretch for the Raiders. I would also add the guy we mentioned earlier, Brian Thomas Jr. A similar type thing to Jaden Reed. He's not smashing to that level in fantasy, and maybe the situation holds him back from reaching this level. But I think if we see that the growth that you outlined, like if he just becomes that dude for Jacksonville,
and Ladd,
I think Ladd's a good one too. Same thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think both those guys look like really good picks where they went, and probably like not necessarily affecting your advance rates, but like you're going to feel, I think, really, really psyched about advancing Brian Thomas and Ladd McConkey teams by the end. Hunter Henry could be a potential league-winning tight end. I mean, he has scored.
Did it tilt you when Hooper scored a touchdown this week?
It didn't, because I mean, who cares? Just what am I gonna? I'm gonna tilt Austin Hooper catches now.
But yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do when you have big Patriots back.
This already happened to me. This already happened in the Thursday night game where we were rooting for Hunter Henry for our pick'em slip, and it was just Austin Hooper. So I'm done. I'm not going to tilt Austin Hooper. Running the exact same speed in like almost the same number, like as another white tight end. I don't like it.
It's very funny. Yeah,
it's pretty funny. But yeah, I'll throw in Hunter Henry. He's just kind of being like the number one wide receiver at tight ends on an offense that maybe by week 14 could have some improvement. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen this week.
They're definitely not turning. It's a tricky one with the Patriots. I don't know what I would do. Obviously, we would need to be at practice and all that kind of stuff to know really what action to take. But they're bad, man. It's rough. It's worse than I thought it was going to be on the offensive side of the football. And I understand. I'm very much pro play your young guys, and the only way to learn is experience. But also, like Kevin O'Connell, speaking of our Kevin O'Connell stuff, had a great quote this past week where he's basically referencing Darnold, and they asked him about, like, how is he like good for you, basically, and he said, damn it, I'm going to script the quote, and it was so good. It was basically talking about how teams just as often they ruin young quarterbacks as they do improve young quarterbacks, because these guys get, at 21 years old, like Caleb, get thrust into these situations with Shane Waldron and a shitty offensive line, and it doesn't go well. Like, what the fuck did you expect to happen with Sam Darnold on the New York Jets? I feel a little bit like that with Drake May. I want to see him, and I think he's the only way that this offense actually becomes good. But also, the most likely scenario is the offense just isn't. It just isn't, because the talent is just not very good.
Yeah, no, I mean, the pressure has been, so 50% pressure rate for Jacoby Brissett. He's seeing pressure on literally half his snaps, half his dropbacks, I should say. Yeah. Will Levis is at 47%, so he's in the same vicinity. Deshaun Watson's at 40, Justin Herbert's at 40, Brock Purdy 39, Caleb 38, Darnold 37. So those are the guys
Purdy,
above 35. Purdy, yeah. It's been kind of interesting with Purdy. He's holding the ball longer, and he's like tagging downfield a little bit more. I actually think Purdy quietly has taken a step forward as like an actual passer.
Dude, he's like playing like Mahomes. The last 2 weeks, he's running around holding the ball.
He's running around.
Crazy.
Yeah. He's making plays. He's like, everyone's like, last year he wasn't, I mean, I wasn't a Brock Purdy for MVP guy. I would have been Josh Allen, frankly. But he was like, he's not in the conversation, even though he leads the NFL in EPA per play, because he's just like a point and shoot, offensive executor. He's not a real quarterback.
He's John Stockton. He's not Michael Jordan.
Yeah, but I mean, he's not. I think people were like, he's not even like.
Well, he was John Stockton. He's not right. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes are Michael Jordan. He was John Stockton, and John Stockton is an all-star and all NBA player, but he's not Michael Jordan.
But I mean, he's not even like a Paul Pierce or something, like he didn't need to be Michael Jordan. Like, but he was like, he didn't even in the conversation of like a guy that could possibly, which whatever.
He might be D Wade now. He might be Dwayne Wade now.
Yeah.
And he was, he was, I don't know what he was before, but he might have elevated basically.
He elevated. I
to
think he's
another
elevated.
level. Mm-hmm.
And I guess I think the arguments were a bit overblown against Purdy, and that we should have taken what he was doing a little more seriously. But I don't think he should have won MVP or anything. And then he blew that case for himself for that game against the Ravens anyway.
Yeah.
But he this year I think has taken a step forward. He looks like he can actually operate outside of whatever Shanahan is scheming up for him and create stuff. It's been exciting.
I think so too. That's actually like a sneaky good one where I want to retroactively nominate George Kittle for the
potential league
winner. Potential league winner. I think their defense is worse. You know what? You want to know what I would have been alerted to if we added the fucking coordinators to the draft hacker before the season. Brandon Staley is the San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator. I had no goddamn idea. Absolutely none. And so they still have a bunch of talent right on defense, but they have some injuries piling up, and their depth is not as good as it once was, because when you start paying you pay Brandon Ayuk and all these guys a bunch of money. And that's why Purdy's scrambling a bunch more. The offensive line is not, especially Trent Williams has to come out every game because he gets dinged up. He's like the Jalen Waddle of left tackles. I kind of wonder if the 49ers, they get things back at full strength here, and we see Purdy. So if Purdy takes a leap, Christian McCaffrey is not all the way, certainly not going to be back soon, but also they don't want to lean on Christian McCaffrey. If we don't get some outsized volume for the pass game, because they trust Purdy is better, they trust him a little bit more, and they need him a little bit more because the defense is worse, which means buddy, if we're getting a bunch of George Kittle did you see the touchdown he had yesterday? Jesus Christ. He's still really good. Debo's still really good. Ayuk will be fine. And if Juwan Jennings is actually a good third wide receiver for this team, that pass game might be really, really sick here for the second half of the season.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I mean, I think Debo could have a lot more upside. Frankly, I think Ayuk could have more upside in that case than he has. He's not dead. But yeah, Kittle is a fun way to dream on the 49ers having to pass a little bit more, and Purdy taking his game to another level. The funny thing about Purdy is he was so efficient last year that he probably won't be that efficient this year, even if he gets better.
But for fantasy,
yeah, you get more volume.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any other guys on that side that you're optimistic about. I did want to just quickly talk about maybe some of our bags, our misses, our whatever. Again, it doesn't have to be bag defense, it doesn't have to be whatever. But I know both you and I were super high on Jaylen Warren. That was kind of one of your big flag plants. And you mentioned injuries have been a big thing, but the Steelers have just been weird, dude. I don't even really know what to make of this. But I will say, as we talked about, the Najee being bad thesis, I mean, you cannot feel much better about that. Jaylen Warren just needs to get healthy. But CPAT also got hurt this week. High ankle sprain, I think it was, for CPAT. So I was just curious on your thoughts on, you led in with not feeling super great, but I think that there's reason for optimism around a lot of guys that maybe have made it not be so great so far. It could be great moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need some patience with a few of these guys that I was pretty in on. Warren would be an example where he had the hamstring. I do think that these preseason injuries, we talked about this on AP Chasing this morning, but these coaches are just lying now, and we probably need to be more pessimistic on preseason injuries than we have been in the past. The McCaffrey one, obviously.
Yeah.
The Warren one, I don't know that Tomlin was lying about that, but he was not. Tomlin's honestly been pretty honest about that one, but he, played, was clearly not 100%, but then people freaked out. People would have been way less freaked out if he just missed the game, but because he played and he didn't play much, people were oh my God, he's dead. I'm well, I mean, remember how he almost didn't play? Maybe he's not dead. Maybe they are easing him in. But then obviously he had the knee injury pop up in week 3, so he's pulled from that game, which also caused people to freak out because he didn't miss that game but didn't play much. So I was okay, wait, is he dead again now? When can I freak out that he's dead? And then we could freak out last Monday that he was dead because he was getting an MRI on his knee, which is, obviously never fun. But that comes back clean. He misses the game. I don't know. Like, we need him to be healthy. My preference would be that Warren misses like the next 2 games. If someone said it's going to take 3 games, great. Sign me up. He misses the next 3 games. Comes back and looks like Warren again. And, actually can make a difference in the running game. I think the opportunity is here. Like, everything about the thesis kind of is broken his way, except for him being healthy.
Yeah.
And he hasn't looked good when he's been out there, but he hasn't been healthy. So I am optimistic that maybe we could get something from him, but that one is always tough when you're talking about a guy who's hurt. Like, what's he going to look like this year? So that one scares me still because he's not healthy. Devon Achane, I think, could be one where we were like, no one's real psyched to have Achane now, but like,
but only because of what
big stand
Saquon's
for
doing,
me.
right? But only because of if Saquon wasn't going to, like, why is it only the Tua thing that people aren't excited? Like, everything we wanted from Achane is happening, right? So like, it's got to be the Tua plus
It's
Saquon.
the Tua, and he's not taking full advantage of it. He's getting a lot of work, but like, he hasn't. I mean,
efficiency's not very good. Yeah.
Efficiency's been terrible. We still have PPR 17, or this is half PPR 17.6 points per game, but like, you have this offense that, like, God, who knows what it's going to look like for the rest of the year. Like, are we ever going to get Tua back?
Hey, Tyler Huntley saved the Ravens once upon a day, so maybe
that's true.
He'll save them.
That's true. So yeah, I mean, but it hasn't. You're not like, oh man, let me check to see which teams I have Achane on right now. And I think you could be checking which teams you have Achane on at in another 4 or 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like, oh, Achane's the answer. Achane's the dude. I still think that's pretty live, and that was a pretty big stand for me. That looks pretty bad. Some of the other stands that I've taken, I'm not as optimistic on. The Drake May stuff's still very up in the air. I think that Kraft will save me there because I don't know how much more he can put up with this.
Yeah,
like he's like an old man. Like, he insisted they draft Drake May.
That's true.
Like, seriously, he was like, I'm not. You're telling me I have to wait until this offensive line gets rebuilt before I can draft another quarterback?
He's
like,
gonna pull a Kyle
not.
Shanahan. I don't know if I'm gonna be alive in a year. And like, it's actually true for
it's real for him. It's very real. He's not gonna just watch. He's like, I have, like, how many years does he have left on the planet? And at what percent of those remaining years are now Jacoby Brissett games? He's got to think through this.
Right, he only has so many days. He's counting it. He's reached the point he's counting the rest of his life in days. Yeah. And he's like, how many of those fucking days is Jacoby Brissett starting?
How many of these are Jacoby Brissett Sundays? I don't have that many Sundays.
Like, imagine being that rich and your whole life is miserable because all you're thinking about is every Sunday I gotta go watch this shit ass team with Jacoby Brissett. At least if they're gonna be shit, give me the young kid. Yeah, that's exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah, so I think I might get saved there. Obviously, the coaches don't want. The coaches are thinking, how many Sundays do I have coaching the Patriots, and what keeps me coaching the Patriots? And it's probably making sure I can always say I have Drake May, and he's gonna be an improvement. It's the day I show him and he's not an improvement is like probably limiting my Sundays coaching the Patriots by a lot. So they're acting in their self-interest by hiding him and behind they don't want to throw him out behind the line and everything as if it's this long-term thing. It's not a long-term thing. They just don't want to get fired because the number 3 overall pick looks absolutely terrible in their offense, and that's a very easy way to get fired. So, but I think Kraft comes over the top here in the next like 2 to 4 weeks and says, I am not wasting another Sunday of my life not watching Drake May. So that one we'll see, but
I just started watching the Vince McMahon, Mr. McMahon on Netflix, and there seems to be a lot of parallels here. I won't get into any impropriety parallels between the two of them, but the nature in which they both act in their own self-interest and use their power feels like this is inevitable. This is very inevitable with Drake May. I wanted to ask you super quickly about a couple of guys. Yeah. I'm just genuinely curious, and then we can get out of here. We talked about Nico being absolutely incredible, and I'm not going to try to belabor him. He is a fucking superstar. First round pick next year. We'll talk about that at a later date. But how are you thinking about Tank Dell? Because I was pretty bullish on Tank, and maybe CJ Stroud as well, because Stroud has really not been. We anointed him like, oh, he's a sneaky MVP candidate and all this kind of stuff, and it hasn't really popped for him. And obviously Tank is. They announced today he's going to play this coming week, so only one missed game for Tank, but he wasn't doing much in his games before he got hurt either. So Nico's balling, Diggs is fine, but what about kind of the rest of the offense here? It's not really holding up. It's end of the bargain.
So one thing, actually, this is a good reminder because for the walkthrough this week, I want to dig in on this for the Texans. But I watched a ton of that game. I played a lot of Nico Collins. Nico Collins was functionally the cover boy this week. He was the cover boy of the walkthrough. Then I thought he was going to miss the game because it publishes overnight Thursday. So then I was like, the stuff I found on Nico versus single man coverage was so compelling that I was like, I'm just going to make it about Houston. So I didn't make it Diggs. I just changed the title to be about Houston. And then Diggs was the cover boy. But then as soon as on Friday, when I realized Nico was going to play, I switched it back to Nico. But, I was frustrated that it wasn't as clean of a win for the walkthrough as it should have been. But I was really, really psyched about this matchup for the offense overall, but also for Nico Collins. I think everyone sees why Nico Collins. I mean, he was just getting peppered. He was open a ton. They were not paying enough attention to him, clearly. But what was going on with the offense, which was still struggling to sustain drives against a matchup where CJ Stroud should have been really crushing it. And I think a lot of it comes down to penalties. They were constantly getting called for penalties, a variety of penalties, holding, false starts, just it was nonstop. They're just now they're backed up 5 yards. Now they're backed up 10 yards. It was nonstop. And I don't know, if that's just going to be a problem for them all year. They're going to be highly penalized, but that would be maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure how much to factor this in, but it could be a potential source of upside where how much is Stroud struggling versus how much is the offense undermining him by putting him in negative situations or stalling drives out that should have led to points. That was a huge part of their struggles against the Jaguars. So I don't know. I'm still optimistic about Stroud. When I'm watching Stroud, he still looks pretty good to me. Mm-hmm. He missed he had Collins wide open in the back of the end zone and missed it high.
Oh, the one he airmailed over him? Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's definitely, I'm not saying he's been perfect, but I think overall I'm still
tough to overthrow Nico Collins by that much, by the way, from that close.
Seriously. So I'm still pretty optimistic about the Texans. I think this is one where we could kind of be why did we get so nervous about the Texans when they were still pretty good, just not, it didn't come out of the gate amazing, but everyone's healthy, now that Dell will be back.
Mixon will be back.
Yeah, I don't care about Mixon. I'm talking about the pass catchers.
Yeah, but I will say Cam Akers stinks. Okay, and JJ Taylor and Dare Ogunbowale were playing in that game, and as much as we don't care about Joe Mixon, get those fuckers off of the football field.
Ogunbowale actually picked up a really nice third down.
Yeah, the right sideline, I think. Yeah. He's fine. But then to get Cam Akers out of here, he's awful. But I think as you were talking, I was getting too deep in the weeds on the Texans, the exact specifics of how well it's gone in the first month. Feels a little bit like missing the forest for the trees. Like you said, it hasn't been perfect, but everybody's healthy. Nico is even better probably than as advertised. I think Diggs looks fine. I am admittedly maybe a little worried about Tank Dell. And that's just maybe early, the fantasy results haven't come in, and he'll hit some big plays. But we knew that it was going to be tough with all the kind of mouths to feed. It was going to be a little more ping pong as opposed to kind of just everybody balling out every week. And I think Nico is just so good that it's really going to be difficult for the other. Like Nico is kind of going to get his, and it's reached that point to me that he is the guy, and then the other guys kind of got to feed on the scraps.
I think Nico's going to get his, but there will be games where offenses or defenses do successfully take him away. He has been double teamed a ton, and they've not been able to do it. He's not been able to get removed. But it's hard to consistently beat double teams. So a team could take him away, or just like double team him on half of his routes. Like you'll sometimes see with like Justin Jefferson, and say beat us with Tank and beat us with Diggs. And Diggs does not look great. Like he looks solid. He looks like a solid number 2 kind of weapon. Diggs could be, I think, or not. Tank could be maybe like a little bit like Rome Odunze, where we're like, man, we're not getting anything out of Rome. What's going on? And then like he pops, right? Because we know Tank Dell is explosive. He can get deep. He can add yards after catch really, really fast and quick. So I'm still optimistic about Tank Dell as a guy who can give some big weeks in an offense that I think should be improving if they get this penalty stuff. And then it's not the only thing, but that's what really jumped out to me watching them yesterday. Like, God, like another penalty. It looks like, I was trying to pull it up. It looks like they are the most penalized team in the league right now.
That's crazy.
I think that includes defense. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if I can.
Well, D'Amico's supposed to be the goddamn defensive coach. It has been a weird start for the Texans, like super duper weird. They're getting a ton of pressure on defense as well, and getting a bunch of sacks. And I thought the secondary was a little better. So they play Baltimore, of course, in week 17. I'm a little bit more. I was like, man, I don't know. The Texans defense just looks pretty gnarly heading into the year, but the secondary is leaving a little bit to be desired. Very pass funnel-y type thing, which given their offense, it's like if they can run into some good offenses on the other side, like the Ravens, could create some pretty fun games. I think if we just start having Stroud slinging on one side and somebody else that's really good slinging on the other.
Me too. And I'm also like, the penalties have been, I was looking last week about like penalties year over year, and 2024 had been one of the higher penalized years. And I'm like, man, the penalties, we talk about like offense versus defense and kind of like the poor offensive line play and all of that, but I think it's showing up. Maybe it's that the offenses are, they're more out of position, or, they didn't expect the defender to come and now they're holding him. So maybe it's just like a symptom of the defense having the advantage, but it could be a symptom of it being early in the season.
Yeah.
And these teams like not being as in sync, and like, if the offense can kind of get a little bit more in sync and together and on the same page, that maybe we start to see some of these penalties. Like a 10-yard penalty is a drive killer, So that would be like my silver lining, and my hope for some of the passing game stuff would maybe be a little bit related to, I got to dig into it more with the penalty stuff, but it's just like, from what I've observed, I'm like, God, a lot of drives, and it feels like more to me than previous years.
Yeah, I agree. Although we did get finally here in week 4 a little bit more fun.
We did
offensively, which was nice. I'm not saying it has anything to do with the penalties, but it was just nice to see some teams actually moving the ball and putting up some points. When the Steelers can score a whole shitload of points and Justin Fields drops a 35 ball or whatever on DraftKings.
That was fun.
That was fun. That was very.
We should
very
do that.
Fun.
We should do that more.
So 2 things, and then I want to ask you we'll give a take and we'll get out. The Justin Fields, Sam Darnold, like the way this is all playing out is the most fucking bizarre thing I feel like I've ever seen in my entire. Sam Darnold is just a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, 4-0 on the best team in the NFL that everybody left for dead. Everybody was like, "Nah, man, they're going to be like 1-7 Nope. 4-0, beat 3 of the best team, 3 top 10 teams in the NFL, beat them already. No big deal. Justin Fields, now he did have the bad fumble this week. But other than that, Justin Fields has not only just been a good quarterback, he's been like the quintessential game manager. Like not making mistakes, accurate, running when he needs to run. Like it was not on my bingo card, not on any fucking bingo card was this outcome specifically for those two guys. So it's like, maybe it is the 4-week variance, right? We'll look back when we talk in a month and be like, ha, you dummies, you thought Justin Fields would play like this for longer, and he turned back into Justin Fields. But it is just kind of funny how these things can play out in such like chaotic ways when it wasn't like injury chaos or coordinator chaos or whatever. Sometimes we just, Justin Fields is older and Sam Darnold's older, and they're not exactly what we thought that they were. It's just funny how that happens.
Real quick on the penalty stuff, it looks like maybe penalties are actually down from last year overall. So I don't know, but the Texans, that game was ruined by penalties.
Not for the Texans. Yeah,
I'll say very narrowly, last week's game could have been a lot more productive if not for those penalties. I overgeneralized to other things, but that I feel pretty confident that game was ruined by penalties.
Well, you just talked to Davis, so it was probably seeping in.
Yeah, I just talked to Davis, so I had a point, and then I made a point that had no evidence behind it.
You had a very poignant point, and then you had to ruin it.
And then made a second point that was immediately refuted, but by me, in my defense.
Exactly. All right,
but I think the field stuff. I mean, it doesn't feel. I think it's real. I think it's real.
Me too.
He looks good. The throws he's making some of them are awesome throws. And we've seen this before with Arthur Smith. He did this with Ryan Tannehill. He revived a flawed quarterback who has strengths, right? He did not succeed.
And they really fit the strengths of what Arthur Smith.
And they really fit a heavy play action offense. Mm-hmm. Right, taking shots downfield, it really fits having exactly one good receiver.
Inserting your QB into the run game is super huge for Arthur Smith. Right, Tannehill had how many touchdowns did Tannehill have? The rushing touchdowns, like 1 million. And Justin Fields is a far better runner.
Yeah, I mean Tannehill in his prime, Tannehill was a converted wide receiver, so he was pretty athletic. Right. But I mean he's never as fast as Justin Fields for sure. I mean, Justin Fields is a pure runner, is one of the best in the league. So, yeah, I mean, it's a similar thing. And, Tannehill when he was having success with Arthur Smith, he was backed by a Derrick Henry run game. Derrick Henry in his prime. Fields is backed by a Najee Harris run game. Fields is having to do more than Tannehill did. And at this point, I know they just lost, but, that was, I think, the most impressive game that he's had so far. I mean, just objectively, it was right.
He was awesome. Awesome.
He was awesome in that game. I mean, I think that could give a coach like Tomlin, right? You're watching that game, you got to be thinking this is what I want. We get down, his play improves. He's making great throws. He's giving us a chance. It's not just that we are game managers playing from ahead, which will be what they attempt to do. But if things go against them, they're not dead. Right, they can actually try to come back and give these other teams a fight. So, I'm impressed. I think this is the game that we needed from Fields to show that he still has the ability to bring upside to the table in an offense that is clearly more focused on limiting his mistakes than, seeing what he can do as a big play generator. But he did, he rose to the occasion. And God, I mean, after a game like that, how are you possibly looking at Russell Wilson
it's over?
I mean, at this point, you have to be thinking okay, couldn't this be a multi-year run? Did we get a starting quarterback completely for free? And this is actually a multi-year run of us being exactly what the Steelers always are, kind of the fringe playoff team. We'll win the wild card game and get bounced in the divisional. That's where the Steelers want to be. So, and I think Justin Fields can do that for them. So, yeah, I mean, it's been cool. I love seeing that, a league that got really scared that they would get tied to Fields if they gave anything of value for him, is how I read that situation the entire time, right? It's not that Fields was not worth more than what the Steelers paid. It's that if anything of value was given for Fields, You were tied to him as your quarterback. You were potentially getting fired if it didn't work. No one wanted that. And I get why no one wanted that. Like, I do understand why that's a scary proposition, but what ended up happening is the Steelers just got him completely for free as a backup plan to Russell Wilson, and then he becomes plan A, when Russell Wilson shows off and pushes a sled around. And I think it's cool. I think it's awesome that Fields, who we know has a ceiling and we know had really poor coaching in Chicago the entire time he was there, now gets a coach who, I mean, certainly has a lot of flaws, but like that he's good at working with a quarterback like Fields. And it's fun to see him showing that, he was better than the NFL truly, I think, pretended that he was. Yeah. This was the
perfect word.
Yeah.
No one thought awesome. Justin Fields is a superstar, but Justin Fields was treated. The teams pretended like he was something also that he was not on the opposite side of the coin. He is very clearly, like, look at quarterback play, dude, across the NFL. You think Devontae Adams wouldn't like somebody as good as Justin Fields throwing him the ball, being in that offense, dealing with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell? I mean, the fuckers got fake hamstring injuries. I'm kidding. I obviously
no, but I think the Raiders are the example that is probably the most.
It's a solid roster. The Raiders have a solid roster and horrendous, like truly bottom of the barrel quarterback play.
But the Raiders, I think, one, they have Getsy, and so they know it's not going to work because we hired a bad OC. Now, maybe don't do that in the first place.
Yeah,
but it's not going to work. But on the other, it's like, I think, why do you bring in Minshew instead of a Fields? Because I think maybe they thought they were going to get a quarterback in the draft, and it didn't possibly occur to them that they wouldn't.
They got screwed by the Falcons.
They got screwed by the Penix thing. So they're like, Minshew's a bridge quarterback to Penix or whoever, McCarthy or whatever they thought they were going to get, and that doesn't happen. But like, I don't know, maybe like take a couple cracks at quarterback. So they completely blew quarterback this offseason in two different ways, three different ways: hiring Getsy, not getting Fields, and then playing the draft wrong. But like, think about the Dolphins. Like, how do the Dolphins not give up a 5th round pick for a functional backup quarterback with Tua having this concussion history? Like that is like an unforgivable miscalculation by the Dolphins. Like,
good point.
The idea that Fields, I mean, just these teams didn't want to deal with fans clamoring for him to be their starter. That was the main thing. They knew if they gave a 3rd round pick for Fields, then whatever guy they were propping up ahead of him was going to be a quarterback controversy, and they didn't want to deal with that.
It's
stupid.
It's like in our space, like, you don't want to deal with, dude, people suck. Okay. So let's start with that. I understand why like you said, why the NFL teams didn't want to deal with kind of what is the circus revolving around Justin Fields. But at a certain point, you have to pull up your big boy pants and say, I got to be able to deal with this, because the alternative is Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle on a win now football. The Dolphins the chips are in the middle, bud. Like all Tyreek ain't going to be here for much longer, right? You have put all this money into all these, like we talked about, it's a top heavy roster, not just the offense. Armstead, Tyreek, Waddle, Tua, Ramsey, couple other defenders, right? They already just had to get rid of multiple defenders this offseason because they don't have any money. They are soon to be the Saints. The Dolphins are en route to being the Saints. You are all in. So like, you cannot have the situation where Tim Boyle is playing a half of football for you. Mm-hmm. You can't. Whatever you got to do, deal with it. Like if Justin Fields comes in and balls out, deal with the fucking drama between Tua and Justin Fields, because the wins are more important and keeping the ship afloat is more important. And I think the whole NFL lost that. Like they lost their way, and we lose our way sometimes in turn. Like everybody does. Like the
Sure.
backlash you get for all this shit, right? It's like, I'm not willing to stick to my convictions because like somebody else disagreed with me or somebody called me a fucking idiot because I like this guy or whatever. And you question yourself and you're like, do I really want to deal? Like, am I really going to shove all my chips on the table on this thing when I know that this isn't like, I know what's going to happen thereafter. We all feel that, but there becomes a tipping point at like, we're all trying to like win, right? We're all playing game. Like we're playing a stupid fucking game, like a very stupid game.
Sure.
Like, but we're trying to win. So like, are you trying to win? Or are you trying to, play the psychological side of things?
Yeah. And I think like the NFL psyched themselves out a little bit because it's like it felt to me like there was this feeling of like, he's not worth anything unless he's worth so little that the fans wake up to the idea that we don't really value this guy.
Yeah.
Because, like the Bears fans wanted them to keep Fields. Remember, they wanted them to keep Fields, and
trade the pick, and keep Fields. Which we're excited
crazy.
About Caleb.
It's still crazy.
That's something that hasn't come back up yet. Is that we're like everybody's like, oh my god, Caleb looks shitty, whatever. The offensive line looks. You know how you could have solved this? You know how you could have solved these problems. The offensive line being bad. You know you could have figured that out.
I'm 100% in the draft Caleb camp. To be clear,
me too.
But that is where like the fans, and I know not all a lot of Bears fans wanted to draft Caleb. But there was a vocal group of Bears fans who were very much like, we want Fields. Fields is beloved by his teammates. Like, I think that was another thing too. Like, you get this guy in a locker room. Like, is he gonna, are you gonna lose the locker room? What's that gonna create? So I think there was like unless he was worth so little that it was clear he was not the starter. But like, I don't know, like if you're the Dolphins, you're like, you got to be like glued to this, like to the stock ticker on Justin Fields' price. Like, okay, he's worth like a late fifth. Like, bye. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're playing that game,
you got notifications on for the price.
You need to have notifications on. Like, the Justin Fields' price is dropped to the fifth. Like, you have to. It's like at that point, and I don't think there was a sense of urgency. In the same way, look, I should have drafted more Jordan Mason once we got that info, right? I didn't ever go like all in.
Yep.
But I think these teams, once the price got to the level where you're like, no, we gave up a conditional fifth. He's not even remotely our starter. They should have been bidding that back up to like a late fourth because that's actually really valuable. I get why they were like, I'm not sending a third for this guy. I'm not sending a second. Like, get out of here. Like, I'm sending a second to get fired in a year. Like, no, thanks. That's the dumbest thing I could possibly do. So I understand that. But like, I just think the day three compensation should have been a lot higher because there should have been a bunch of teams competing at that price.
And I think that I don't think there's any way to debate that, honestly, at this point. It's a month. Like I said, it could turn back into a pumpkin, but I feel
even if he does, he's already paid off a backup quarterback, right?
Right. We talk about this all the time. Like,
you got 3 wins out of
him. Exactly. In best ball, it's like that. We do this conversation, and sometimes it's a little misguided, right? Like when Kyron Williams and Jordan Mason exist, if you try to say, oh, if I only got 2 weeks out of a 14th round pick, that's fine. It's like opportunity cost is the thing, right? But the Justin Fields one, opportunity cost really it's not a thing in that one. But it is still a reasonable, like in our space, to be like, he said, okay, so Justin Fields and Sam Darnold could turn back into pumpkins, and one team is 4-0 and the other team is 3-1. Didn't you just get everything you hoped for out of that, and then some? And that's what we're talking about. Like, dude, that's why I keep telling myself this about Jordan Mason, because I believe I drafted 49 of 150 BBM teams have Jordan Mason. And I'm like, this is carrying me, right? Because I have 0 Saquon and 0 Derrick Henry and a bunch of receivers who suck. But then I'm also telling myself, like, you're like, on one hand, I know that like I probably need to have other guys later in the season. Right. The most likely scenario is that Jordan Mason is probably carrying me here for these first 10 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. And then I need someone else to step up. That's not a very comfortable feeling when we talk about week 17 is all that matters. Right. I'm like, I have become a robust running back drafter. somehow my 14th round pick has turned me into this. Oh no, what's gonna happen later in the season? Because he hit early, and like Chuba hit early, and these guys hit early. But then the other thing is just like, yeah, but like that's kind of the point. I didn't know who it was gonna be, but the hope was the hope was it's gonna layer in a way that I can't predict. Whether Jordan Mason does it now or Jordan Mason does it later, maybe Braylon does it later, or Tyler Algier does it later, or whoever does it, or or Dowdle does it later, or whatever. Chase Brown, somebody's gonna pick up that slack. I've gotten what I wanted out of this, and so like that's kind of my cheesy transition from like the Darnold and Fields thing is like, even if it doesn't go perfect, we've kind of gotten what we wanted out of XYZ. So we forget also not just the chaos, but the layering that happens in best ball. It's like, we can't really predict when these guys are going to score these points, but so long as you get guys scoring points and having big weeks, dude, I'm cool. Like,
yeah.
Let the chips fall, man.
Yeah. And Mason might ultimately be like a pretty big win because of how productive he's been and will be probably for a few more weeks. And that's like, you bank that still all counts. So yeah, but a lot more to play out.
Yeah. So I want to ask, I want to do this. We do this on our DFS shows. It's kind of like just every week everybody predicts somebody that's going to be, the nuts, right? For that single week. Because I want to track what we think, so we'll do a few of these before the end of the season. In early round, middle round, so like first 2 or 3 rounds, then your rounds, whatever, middle, it totally up to each of us to kind of figure that out. And then like a late-ish round guy that's like, right now, who is that guy you would like? If I could get this guy, I have to have these guys on all my teams: an early round player, a middle round player, and a late round
at
player.
The price they were going at.
At the price they were going at, who would be your early round, middle round, late round guy? And then like, we'll do it again in week 8 and see. I want to see like, how stupid do we feel from all this? And again, it's flexible, right? Round 13, it doesn't have to be round 18, doesn't have to be round 8, doesn't have to be round 1, but just like kind of an early-ish, middle-ish, late-ish guy that you would be like, yeah, give me this dude on all my teams.
Neighbors.
Damn it. Yes, I agree. Definitely Neighbors. I'm going to add, I'll do Nico.
Nice.
Early round guy. I think those two stand out the most to me. People would say Saquon, but I do legit think running back is just riskier this early in the year to say I want any running back on all of my teams. So middle round.
Jaden Reed.
Oh, fuck, this is terrible. We're getting all this thing. I'm gonna go Brock Bowers. We'll do Brock Bowers. Just give me the superstar tight end in the middle. So Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, Jaden Reed, and Brock Bowers, late round player.
Late round player. Late round player is a lot tougher.
Way tougher. I don't have a good answer yet. Okay, I got one.
What about, you know what? I'll say Roschon Johnson.
Ooh, I like that one. I also feel like such a coward. I was gonna play him in DFS. I had this week. I
played him. I you know what I did? I punted off. Although one of them cashed, so I made like 60% of it back. But I did like 5 milli makers, and I was like, I'll play Roschon in here. Like, I mean, I know that this isn't going to do anything, but like, I have this Roschon itch that I want to scratch, and also a Caleb itch. And I was like, so I'm just going to like boost all these dudes and make lineups that just the Bears are having a good week. So
yes,
it didn't. I think I lost. It cost me $40 to make that play.
I'm glad I did it. Still an expensive itch, but it was a better than the alternative. There are more expensive itches.
There's more. The single entry stuff I play is more expensive than $40. Yes. So yeah, yes. I'm glad I played it that way.
I had a pretty good week, but I had a couple of teams that I was too cowardly to play that would have.
Dude, congrats on a couple weeks ago. You had a massive week.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot. I'm telling you, the Smallfield stuff, man, is just the best because I play. I've
Was it the
really
Wildcat?
changed.
What was that?
No, the 4K tournament, $4,000 tournament, the fourth down conversion. I think is what they usually call it, the fourth down conversion. It's usually like 250 or 300 people total.
Nice.
But it's a pretty good flat payout structure actually for that. And then like, dude, the chalk condenses so much in those tournaments, like with the, it's all the high stakes, the whales and stuff in there. So like I played Fields Pickens in that, and Najee was like 50% owned. And so it was like I just jammed chalk basically outside of it's like almost all chalk, but I played Fields Pickens instead of Najee, and they all had Najee. And obviously he sucked, and Fields Pickens went ham. And so it was kind of like, awesome. I had Nico. Of course, you have Nico. You have these guys, so it's pretty straightforward. Actually, shout out Alvin Kamara. He was on my big week.
Nice.
Played Alvin Kamara. So we're more than even though I have no Alvin Kamara in best ball. We're more than even.
With Alvin Kamara.
I love it. My late round guy that I'm going to toss out there, Jordan Mason, is like a little too easy, but also he's like I said, the greatest advance rate play of all time. I'm squeamish on if I would actually want him on all of my teams. I'm gonna go Braylon Allen.
That's what I regretted not doing. That's what I immediately regretted not doing. Braylon Allen's a better answer.
I think. Look, Brees is awesome still, but like, I do have like small concerns about the slow start from Brees. Not in terms of like Brees is not going anywhere, but Braylon just keeps looking good. And like, I think that there already has been standalone value for Braylon, and there could be like a little more standalone value. And I mean, if something happens to Brees, Jesus Christ, man, like this dude is the league winner of all league winners.
Charbonnet, but good.
Yeah. Charbonnet stinks and was putting up big weeks, in probably a worse situation. If Braylon is good and in an Aaron Rodgers offense,
he's just the correct answer. Yeah. If you didn't pick him, I was going to try to change my answer to him. That was just the right way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I had. I think I have a lot of Braylon. He's probably the player I wish I had more of. The most.
Yeah, me too. Because I did target him, but I didn't hammer him. Yeah.
And the price was so bad to start the summer, and you just look back like, what were you doing? Why did you not drop?
Well, we didn't know he's the backup. Once we did know he's the backup, but then I think I should have chased him up a little more aggressively is what it is. Because there was a period where I was drafting a lot of them. But I ended up doing a lot of my BBMs fairly late when his price was higher, and I didn't
much higher
him enough. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, we got to get out of here. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We're going to try to do this every month or so, just to check in on the best ball bags and have some fun shooting the shit. If you have any questions, comments, etc., leave those, of course, in the comments on either of these shows, and check out, of course, we still are covering Best Ball Resurrection, all that fun stuff over at Spike Week, and Pat is cranking out everything. Of course, the walkthrough being the thing that you absolutely have to read every single week. Also, I do just want to shout out your Dynasty show. I love listening to you guys talk Dynasty in season and off season. But like for best ball, for DFS, for everything, it's really, I think it helps me a lot thinking about things through like a different game lens, but the same like players and concepts and all that kind of stuff. Like I learn some things every time I listen to the Dynasty. I think I learn more from your Dynasty shows than I learn from other people's like DFS shows. Like DFS. I don't mean that like as a slight on anybody else. It's just like, you're talking about the same players through kind of the same lights, but for a different game. And it really opens my eyes to a lot of things that you guys talk about on there. So I just wanted to shout that one out because you guys do awesome work for the Dynasty stuff. But anything you got before we get out?
I'll shout out Nat Irby's quick slant articles, which if you're listening to this, it's probably already the game has started. But just in case, check out Matt Irby's quick slants, which cover the Monday night games, the doubleheader this week, but he also is doing them for the Thursday night football game, Sunday night football, Monday night. So those are really good. In addition to the walkthrough, we have all the games covered this season. And the walkthrough covers the rest of the games. The first game in the walkthrough I always keep free. So if even if you're not a subscriber, I'd recommend signing up for the free newsletter, and you'll get the Cover Boy game. Like this week, there's a London game, so that'll lead off the article. But you'll get 2 free games. The London game will be free, and then whoever I make the Cover Boy, that game will be free too. So legendaryupside.com. Check it out. Stephanie Miller's waiver wire article will be out tomorrow. Highly recommend that as well.
Love it. We will see you guys in a few weeks. Enjoy sweating, tilting, coping, all that fun stuff that Pat and I just been doing for the last couple hours. See you.